Reborn in India as a Magnate. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76. Harsuk pawns his wife. Since Singer Industrial Group started to operate at full capacity, the pattern of the entire Sinja town building materials market has completely changed. Because it is a monopoly operation and there are no other competing companies, the sales performance of Singer Group's cement plant and asbestos tile factory has been rising since they got on track, and the speed of making money can be described as robbery. It is now mid-January, and it is the middle stage of the dry season. The rain in the sky is gradually decreasing, and the temperature is also suitable, very dry. Such good weather is suitable for house inspection, and the publicity methods adopted by Singer Industrial are too shameless. Why do you say that? Unlike other manufacturers who advertise and distribute brochures, Singer Industrial's publicity method is actually verbal approval, and it spends money to hire a group of idle people in Sinja town who are good at speaking, conduct unified simple training, and then spread these propaganda personnel into the society, so that these eloquent people can hold Singer Group's brochures, go to all over the country, to promote how good the cement produced by Singer Industries is, how cheap and durable asbestos tiles are, and the payment method is very flexible. You can pay in one lump sum or in installments. Your family paid without asking any questions. One person spreads it, two spreads it, and three people spread it. It becomes a fact. In addition, the brochure prints how beautiful the houses with cement stone tiles in some big cities should be. How happy the people living in them should be. These pictures are deeply rooted in people's hearts. Society is made up of people, and there must be competition in places with many people. In every village, there will be a family that spends a huge amount of money to buy cement asbestos tiles from Singer Industries and then starts to renovate their own houses. Become the first person in the whole village to eat crabs. When the house is built, the brightness, beauty, and durability can be seen by everyone. Moreover, after renovating the house, the owner of this house always looks smiling, no matter who he meets, and what's more, he invites some of his distant relatives to visit his home. Under the gaze of the villagers, the owner of this house personally introduced to the relatives from afar how good the cement house he had spent a huge amount of money to build was. Old man, who could bear such a show-off? No matter what, the man who built the house was considered a middle-class family in the village. He was not that rich, but he was bold and dared to order a batch of building materials from Singh Industrial Cement Factory and Asbestos Tile Factory in installments. He came back to build the house. Now that the house was built, the status of this family in the village was rising steadily. The eldest son with cerebral palsy, who was previously ignored, was actually targeted by the matchmaker. The family in the next village was willing to pay a huge dowry and took the initiative to propose marriage. This made the owner of the house feel that building the house was a wise decision. Wherever he went, he almost put his eyes on the top of his head, and he was so arrogant. He even had a habit of receiving passers-by out the window. Sometimes he even took the initiative to pull those who were in a hurry, pointed at his beautiful and tall cement house, talked and laughed, and showed off. So arrogant. Do you think people of the same class in the village can stand it? You just took out a loan to build a cement house with 3 bedrooms and 1 living room. If you can get a loan, why can't we? The well-known people in the village, who were not much wealthier than this house building company, began to take action, and they really couldn't stand the other party's arrogance. The male owner came to Sinja town and Singer Building Materials Company with his family savings and livestock proof, like the store manager of the building materials company, Villa, to negotiate business. Of course, these people didn't have so much cash to buy tons of cement and asbestos tiles. They could only take installment payments or mortgages to bring these cement and stone tiles to the village to build houses. While the husbands took the money out to buy building materials, the wives of these villagers were not idle and began to organize some good female villagers to do logistics support. They even asked their children to run to relatives in other villages and inform them that these relatives would come to help build houses in 2 days. Wow, it was so lively. Those who are determined to pay high interest in installments to repair their houses have improved their social status and reputation to a certain extent. It shows that their family lives a rich life, which makes those Shudras living at the bottom envious. One of the Shudra family owners is named Harsak. Harsak is 41 years old this year. His family rents a few acres of land. He married a wife when he was 25 years old. He used the dowry brought by his wife to buy a human-powered tricycle that can carry thousands of pounds of weight. He works as a transporter in the town of Sinjar. In this way, life has become better day by day. Although it cannot be said that they are rich, the food produced by the family is enough for food, and they can also make some living money from the transportation business to improve their family life. At least the 4 children have clothes and shoes to wear. Finally, 2 daughters were born. The family's financial pressure is relatively large. The eldest daughter is already 14 years old, but has not saved enough dowry. No one accepted their family's advance request, so it has been delayed. Harsak, who has been running transportation in the town, can be regarded as knowledgeable. Although he didn't know a few words, he was very knowledgeable and flexible. He saw that those Shudras who lived a better life bought cement and asbestos tiles from Singh building materials store with loans, and came back to build houses. His status in the village was rising steadily. His daughters and sons had no worries about finding wives. This made Harsak feel extremely unbalanced. Others were human beings, and so were he. They were all in the Shudra class. Who was better than whom? Why could others improve their status in the village but he couldn't? After wasting time at home and weighing the pros and cons for several days, he finally made up his mind to take his own property to Singh building materials store to buy cement and asbestos tiles to build a house. But his family lived in a mud house, a house made of adobe thatch, with no doors or windows, and only 30 square meters. How much money could such a house be mortgaged for? He couldn't even buy 2 bags of cement, so what house could he build? After Singh building materials store learned about Harsak's family situation, it decisively rejected him. But people are forced to be flexible, and some of the weird and even perverted traditions in Indian society are real. I don't know what Harsak is thinking, or was he driven crazy by the villagers who were repairing houses in the village? He actually pulled his 30-year-old wife on a tricycle and ran to Sinjar town. Singh building materials store used his wife as collateral and bought a full 2 tons of cement and 40 asbestos tiles with a loan. The total value of these building materials is 24,000 rupees, which is more than 2,000 yuan if converted into RMB, but 24,000 rupees in Sinjar town. That is a huge loan, a loan for 10 months. If the 24,000 rupees cannot be repaid, there is still an interest of 2,400 rupees. Harsak mortgaged his wife to the building materials store, and then he became a slave owned by the Singh family. Chapter 77, Big Trouble. Repaying the debt of more than 26,400 rupees in 10 months is a huge burden for Harsak, who uses a human-powered tricycle to carry goods for business. He had to do this for his 14-year-old daughter, otherwise his daughter would have to rot at home and become a burden to the family. After all, the older a woman is, the harder it is to get married. Even if Harsak, the father, bought a lottery ticket and won a dowry of millions of rupees, he would never find a suitable son-in-law. How could a father not be anxious? It would be better if he was anxious, but he didn't mortgage his 30-year-old wife. If the loan is not repaid in 10 months, this 30-year-old woman will become a slave of the Belsina family. Slaves who can be disposed of by their masters at will, have no personal freedom and personality rights. Knowing such serious consequences, Harsak had no choice but to bite the bullet and bear it, taking his wife as collateral for this absurd thing. Only Indians can do it. It's really not to mention that there has always been such a rule of mortgaging wives in rural India. Although it is illegal in India, mortgaging or selling a wife is reasonable and legal. Women who are sold or mortgaged can only accept the fact with tears and cannot resist at all. This is also a very strange folk custom in India. Harsuko, who mortgaged his wife and finally bought back 2 tons of cement and 40 asbestos tiles, immediately became a celebrity in the village. The social status, layer by layer, made Harsuko feel that he was very smart in the business of mortgaging his wife in exchange for building materials, and the facts proved that he was right. But Hasuko, who was about to build a house, encountered a troublesome thing. Although the 14-year-old eldest daughter could help the family fulfill the responsibilities of a hostess, but a house cannot be completed by one or two people, as the owner has to complete the food and accommodation arrangements for the person who repairs the house. This is not a distance task that a 14-year-old girl can complete, which makes Hasuko miss his wife for the first time. At this point, his wife has been mortgaged to Sing Building Materials Store and is now working as a maid in the building materials store, washing clothes and cooking. If the loan is not paid off, your wife is not your own. Hasuko is very clear about this. This is to repair the house. Without the arrangement and preparation of the hostess, it is impossible to complete the century-long plan of repairing the house. What should I do? Don't you really say that crooked people have crooked tricks? I mortgaged a wife, can't I marry another wife? When Hasuko, who was about to repair the house, spread the word that he planned to marry another wife, although Hasuko was 41 years old, the matchmaker still came to the door. The girls who wanted to get married through the matchmaker ranged from 13 to 20 years old, and the price of the bride price paid reached 20,000 rupees. Although this amount of money could not redeem his wife, it could still solve some of the family's financial difficulties. I didn't expect Indians to get married so quickly. 2 days later, the cement just arrived at Hasuko's house. Hasuko, who had mortgaged his wife, had already held the wedding and married a 17-year-old wife. With a wife and the dowry brought by his wife, he finally had money and someone could repair the house. So everyone started working in a hurry. Otherwise, why do people say that Sing's building materials business is booming? Singh really has a way to do business. The building materials store even arranged an after-sales service. This after-sales service is not like other machine maintenance departments, but to guide those who buy building materials on how to build qualified cement houses. As long as you buy more than 2 tons of cement, Singh's building materials store will send a salesperson to guide you to repair the house and how to dig the foundation, how to use cement, steel bars and bricks to build a house, how to weave boxes to complete the construction of door frames and window frames. It can be said that he is a rural construction engineer in every detail. Of course, every house repair is not a small project. It can be said to be a century-long plan, so all relatives will come to help. It is impossible to ask for wages for relatives to help, but you, the owner of the house, must provide them with food, drink, and accommodation, so the 20,000 rupees dowry will soon be spent. When the house was repaired, it was 10 days later, and the dowry brought by the newly married wife was only 3,000 rupees. It was enough for the whole family to live on for a few months, but if the 25,000 rupee loan could not be repaid after a few months, the wife would be given to someone else. So after the house was repaired, Hasuko, who had mortgaged his wife, worked hard to save money and wanted to redeem his wife. But it happened that, while Hasuko was busy repairing the house at home, Singh took his wife to play with others in RB. When he was happy, something happened in the building materials store, and this matter was not small. It almost shocked the whole town of Sinjar, and the old housekeeper Mr. Jamal who stayed at home was worried about it. He couldn't think of how to solve the current dilemma. He had to make a phone call to inform Singh, who was enjoying the tropical beach style in Malaysia. Why did the matter become so big? The crime scene should be transferred to 7 o'clock on the second night, when Hasuko repaired the house. The wife, who worked as a maid in Singh's auction house, happened to collect the clothes of a 20-year-old Singh family servant named Al-Musha, and folded them neatly, and sent them to the room where Al lived. At this time, no one was in the room. The weather was quite hot and humid. Hasuko's wife had worked all day, washing clothes and cooking, and her only sari was soaked with sweat. Seeing that no one was around, the woman became bolder and untied her sari, and put it on. She bent over and made the bed for Singh's servant, the 20-year-old Almisha. Although this woman was already a mother of 4 children, she had a beautiful figure and was pretty, except that she was a little dark. The only sari was almost naked and making the bed by the bed. Any man should have a reaction to this kind of erotic scene, not to mention that Almisha, who was not married at the age of 20, could control his belt when he returned to his dormitory and saw such an erotic scene. It would be strange. Besides, From ancient times to the present, no matter which city in India, the crime rate of rape is high, and women who are raped in the folk will be treated unfairly. They think that they are seducing men, and will suffer such a bad fate, while rapists are not so hated, which further promotes the prevalence of rape in Indian society. Good guy, a 20-year-old unmarried boy saw a naked 30-year-old woman in a dormitory late at night. This is not good. It would be strange if he could still control himself. He quietly returned to the dormitory and secretly glanced at the warehouse outside. It was quiet, then slowly closed the door, pulled the curtains above the door, and locked the door. The click woke up Alsuk's wife, who was concentrating on making the bed. She quickly tidied her clothes and looked up. Just when she wanted to go out, seeing Alsuk's red eyes, Alsuk's wife knew that she was in trouble. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 78 Case. As a person who has experienced this, Lamasuk saw that the young man's eyes were red and his breathing was rapid. It was like a werewolf, which made her, a weak woman, feel that her doom was coming, so she instinctively pulled her collar to wrap the sari around her body and shouted loudly while backing away, "Sir, please calm down. I was mortgaged by my husband Hasuk to work as a maid in your Singh building materials store. I'm not one of those prostitutes who take jobs on the street. You should give me due respect in the Singh building materials industry. You should know how serious the consequences of doing this are. If you are not careful, you will go to jail." To be honest, Almasha has been overwhelmed by desire now. Let alone going to jail. He would not care if you said that he would be shot for rape. The more this charming Lamasuk resisted, the more Almasha's animal nature was aroused and even drooled. No matter what Lamasuk said, Almasha could not hear it. Now the boy only had this charming body in his eyes. As for the consequences of rape, how serious it was, has long been forgotten. Every rapist knows that rape is a serious crime and needs to bear criminal responsibility. But why are there so many rapists? Are these people knowingly committing crimes? Yes, they are knowingly committing crimes. During the rape process, their brains are filled with desire. As for the consequences of doing so, the brains of these rapists will automatically block them. Only after the deed is done will they know the fear. Now Almasha is in this state, and he can hardly hear anything. The more the 30-year-old Ramasuk struggles, the more he retreats and dodges. The more Almasha feels excited, and he drools and says madly, "Ha ha ha, it's useless to say anything. You are mine today. Come on, baby." After saying that, he rushed to Ramasuk madly. The two rolled on the bed and fought. Although Ramasuk is not well educated, but this woman still knows the word shame. In order to maintain her dignity, the dignity of her husband, and the dignity of her children, this woman keeps resisting. She shouted and called out, hoping to attract the attention of the people outside the door, to rescue this poor woman. But even if she resisted, she was still a woman, not as strong as a man. How could she resist Almasha, who was only 20 years old and strong? As the sound of tearing clothes rang out, the woman's screams and cries became more sharp. Even so, the 30-year-old mother did not give up resistance, and stretched out her rough and dark hands from years of work. She scratched hard, and cursed in her mouth, and her sharp nails scratched Almasha's face. When the sound in the room ended, 30-year-old Ramasuk looked at the ceiling with lifeless eyes, and her body was covered with bruises. The tattered clothes were greatly stimulated, and she just looked at the ceiling stupidly, motionless. If her abdomen had not been slightly lifted or dropped, it could be judged that this woman was dead. Almasha, who had vented his anger, was afraid at this time, and sat in the corner of the bed tremblingly, to pick up the pants on the ground. She took out a pack of cigarettes from her trouser pocket, and lit it with a lighter. She relaxed a little, but the cold sweat on her head never stopped. She didn't know what to do. The two people on the bed were immersed in their own world. After an unknown period of time, Ramasuk, who was lying on his back on the bed, struggled to sit up. The first time he struggled to sit up, he failed and fell down. Then he gritted his teeth, and began to support his body, to sit up from the bed. He succeeded once, twice, 3 times, and the 4th time, the woman didn't go crazy, didn't cry or scream, but silently dragged her scarred legs down the bed little by little. Then she bent down to pick up the sari and other clothes that were torn into pieces on the ground, held them in her arms, bent over and walked out little by little. When she just opened the door, a breeze blew in. At this time, Almasha seemed to hear the sound from hell and was trembling with fear. At this time, Ramasak, who was seriously injured, crouched at the door with clothes in his arms, turned his head little by little, and his face, which was already covered with tears, was hideous. But his eyes were very attractive, and he said coldly to Almasha, who was sweating profusely while sitting on the bed, "You devil, you have to pay the price for your actions today. Even if it means death, I will not let you go. Just wait, someone will take care of you." After that, he walked out barefoot, one step at a time, and soon disappeared in this dirty room. Only then did Almasha feel afraid. But it was too late. Almasha had no parents since he was a child. He was an orphan adopted by Belsing when his parents were away. He had lived in the Singh family since he was a child, and he was also a family slave. He was loyal to the Singh family and had no second thoughts. Why didn't he marry at the age of 20? The reason was very complicated. First, the changes in the Singh family were too drastic. The old patriarch died by the Ganges River, and the master and his wife who rushed back were killed in a car accident. Only the 10-year-old Belsing and the old housekeeper were left to barely support the family business. These years can be said to be terrified. Finally, my master Belsing has grown up. Now 2 factories have been built, and the rise of the family is just around the corner. When Belsing's parents died unexpectedly, Almasha had reached the age of marriage, that is, in his teens. But at that time, the entire Singh family was keeping their tails between their legs, for fear of attracting other people's attention, causing trouble for the entire Singh family, and letting others eat them up cleanly without a drop left. So this was delayed. When Belsing invested in building a factory, he was very busy. How could he have time to find a wife for the male servants in the house? It was delayed until now. In the end, it led to such serious consequences. Almasha thought of his master Singh's hot temper and very ruthless handling methods. He was so scared that he trembled all over, but he was wrong. Could he still run away? In any case, the Singh family is the home where Almasha has lived since he was a child. The scene of wandering and not having enough food when he was a child always haunted him in his dreams. Almasha didn't want to lose his hard-earned home, so he had to bite the bullet and move up. He picked up his clothes and put them on randomly, then took a look at this pretty good dormitory. At least there was a bed and a table. There was also a light, and then he sighed very sadly, closed the door, and didn't care where the raped Ramashak ran to. Almasha opened the door of the warehouse and walked out, then turned a few corners, and came to the opposite side of the cross street. I saw that the lights were still on the 2nd floor of Belsina's home in the town. Now the old butler Jamal lives in this house. He is also the person who took care of Almasha since he was a child. Whether he lives or dies depends on the decision of the butler and master Belsina. What consequences are all deserved by himself, who made him unable to control his belt. Chapter 79. Emergency Meeting. This 20-year-old Almasha, since he couldn't control his own belt, made a big mistake, but he has lived in the Singh family since he was a child. After receiving formal servant training, he has just turned the Singh family into his own family business, and he will never be loyal to the Singh family for a lifetime. Now that he has caused trouble, he should bear it himself, and he can't discredit the Singh family because of his own mistakes. So even if Almasha had some money in his pocket, he didn't choose to run away, but came to the house across the street and knocked on the door. After a long time, the old butler Jamal opened the door with a coat on. Seeing Almasha, who had been raised by him since he was a child, was stunned. Because this kid was too embarrassed, his face was full of sweat, and his face was full of blood marks from women's nails. There were even places where a piece of meat was scratched off that could be compared with the blood gourd. The old butler Jamal has lived for more than 60 years and has seen everything. When he saw this kid in this state and this embarrassed look, he knew something was wrong. Didn't Almasha start yet? The old butler was shocked and grabbed Almasha's ear and dragged him into the house, cursing as he walked. "You bastard, who gave you the courage To use the honor of the Singh family to fool around outside. Don't you know that rape is a shameful crime? Aren't you bringing shame to the family? The Singh family has raised you for 15 years. This is how you repay the Singh family. Your conscience has been eaten by dogs. Almasha followed Jamal into the house and then knelt on the cold floor with a plop. Listening to the old butler's distressed and angry scolding, Almasha finally realized how big a mistake he had made and how much trouble he had brought to the entire Singh family. Now the Singh family has just started to rise, and it can't withstand the ravages of the storm, but it was his own impulse. He pushed the entire Singh family to the forefront. If his family's momentum of rising was interrupted because of his fault, he would not be able to atone for his sins even if he died. Now that he knew the seriousness of the matter, it was too late. Almasha thought that the Singh family would face pressure from public opinion and society because of his fault, and the two factors they invested in might lose all their money. In that case, the Singh family would be really desolate. How could he be worthy of the family that had raised him for 15 years? So he knelt on the ground and wailed in pain. Uncle Jamal, I know how much danger I have brought to the Singh family and how much trouble my shameless behavior has brought to the Singh family. I'm willing to bear all the sins, even if I'm thrown into prison. I have no regrets. As long as I don't implicate the Singh family, I will do anything. Almasha cried and said, which made the old housekeeper feel really uncomfortable. This old housekeeper personally took care of Almasha, who grew up. He is only a few years older than the old housekeeper's youngest son and is considered loyal to the Singh family. There are no more than 10 such loyal servants in the entire Singh family. Each of them is the family's wealth. It is a pity to give up the 15 years of education. Who would be willing to give up like this? The old housekeeper was really furious. He slapped Almasha twice, interrupting the crying of a 20-year-old boy. At this time, he sat on the sofa angrily and kicked Almasha, gritting his teeth and cursing. What's the point of saying these? Who did you touch? Who is the other party? Tell me clearly. At this time, Almasha knew that he could not hide it, so he told everything. After listening to the story, the old housekeeper felt the seriousness of the situation. Why did he say that? As the noble master of Raga village, the only industrialist in the entire Sinja town, would the Singh family capsize in the gutter because of a small rape crime? Is there anyone in Sinja who can shake the status of the Singh family? No. Even the mayor is an ally. How can others do to the Singh family? Then why does the old housekeeper feel that this is more common in India? What is there to be surprised about in a rape case that can be said to be a popular trend? What's the trouble? Not only is there trouble, but it's a big trouble. The trouble lies in two reasons. The first reason is the status of the little rapist Almasha. It is a huge trouble. If the rapist Almasha is a Vaisya, there will be no such trouble, because if a high-caste master rapes a low-caste Shudra, it is called a visit, not rape. The first round woman who was raped will feel a kind of honor. Do you think this is strange? But this is a fact. The family of the raped woman will not choose to report the case or pursue the crime of rape. But Masha is a Shudra, and he is in the same social class as the raped woman. That's where the trouble lies. The family of the raped will feel greatly insulted if the Sukh family chooses to resolve this matter through legal means. Even with the protection of the Singh family, Almasha will be put in prison for several years. Of course, you can also avoid punishment by means of monetary compensation, but I don't know what the Sukh family means. If they bite to death and don't let go, no matter how much money you have, you can't solve this matter. The second reason for the trouble is public opinion. The raped Ramasuk was mortgaged by her husband Harsuk as collateral to Singh Building Materials Company. Although during the mortgage period, you can use Ramasuk to wash clothes, potty and cook at will, but this does not include sleeping with you. And it is still a bad rape. Doesn't the collateral have personal freedom and dignity? I mortgaged my wife to you to buy cement, but I didn't sell it to you Singh Building Materials Company. You raped my wife. Isn't this blatant bullying? And it also bullies us consumers. If the matter is instigated by the hostile family or competitors, then public opinion will form an unfavorable situation for the entire Singh family. People spit can round people. Sinja is not a big town to begin with. If it gets a bad reputation, who will buy the cement and asbestos tiles produced by the two factories of the Singh family? Who should they sell them to? If the products cannot be sold, won't the two factories be a waste? But the Singh family can't afford such a big loss for the two factories that they built with all their money. Do you think it's troublesome? The old housekeeper was worried, but he should solve the problem when he encounters it. There is no reason to choose to escape, otherwise the Singh family will be finished. It will be a stinking street. The most important thing now is to ensure that the victim does not die, otherwise he will be unable to explain himself, even if the Singh family uses high pressure means. The price paid to shut up Harsuk is also very expensive. The truth will come out sooner or later, so the top priority now is to ensure that the female victim does not die. Chapter 80, The Truth Cannot Be Hidden. Yes, the most urgent thing now is to ensure that the female victim is alive. Although Indian women have never been to school and are relatively ignorant, a woman still has dignity and shame. Otherwise, there would not be so many widows who would jump into the fire to die with their husbands when they died and were cremated. In addition, the perpetrator of this rape case is a Shudra, and the victim is also a Shudra. These are terrible cases that happen to people of the same caste. As for the public's concern, this is a rape committed by a noble lord, Brahmin, Kshatriya, and Vaishya. It is just a gossip that favored a woman of a lower caste. It's no big deal. Even if it's terrible, it will be left unresolved. But now it's different. The matter is more complicated than imagined. The old housekeeper quickly calmed down and came up with a countermeasure. Seeing Almasha, the male servant who was trained by the family, kneeling there and crying like a child who made a mistake, he was furious. Where did the beastly nature that you raped women go? Now that the incident has happened, you are scared and choose to escape. What use is there for a waste like you to the Singh family? He jumped up from the sofa and kicked him twice, both of which were aimed at his face. 2 kicks made Almasha's nose and mouth bleed, but he still didn't feel relieved and cursed loudly. Now you are pretending to be a bear. You are scared. You have caused so much trouble for the Singh family. Do you know? If things are not handled well, our family will lose everything. How can you let Mr. Singh and Mrs. Lina, who just got married, live? Are you worthy of the master and lady who picked you up? Are you worthy of the Singh family who raised you and educated you for 15 years? Almasha also had a sense of shame. He cried and climbed up, hitting himself on the mouth and shouting that he was not a human. At this time, the old housekeeper also felt distressed. After all, he was a member of his family. You have to look at the owner before you can beat the dog. The Singh family will not fall so easily, so he shouted loudly. Even if I beat you to death, I can't solve the problem. So you stand up and show your courage. Hurry up and find the victim and comfort her. Even if you have to tie her up with a rope, tie her up and don't let her commit suicide. If she is really dead, we won't be able to explain ourselves. Hurry up and mobilize people to find her. Where can a woman run to? At this time, the old housekeeper put on his clothes, picked up the flashlight and keys beside him, and walked out of Singh's house with Almasha. When we arrived at Singh's building materials store, it was already 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening, although we hadn't had dinner yet. But everyone in the building materials store went back to their rooms to rest, waiting for Amasuk to prepare dinner for everyone. So the building materials store was officially closed and could only be entered from the warehouse at the back. The old man rushed in and saw that there was no one in the quiet warehouse area. Are these damn people all deaf? A rape happened in the room downstairs. Can't these people hear it? No one came out, let alone stopped it. Do these people really have other intentions, or are they really deaf? Thinking of this, the old butler Jamal, who was furious, stood in the middle of the warehouse and shouted at the top of his voice. Get up, all of you idiots. You don't know what happened. Come out, Villa. Why are you pretending to be a dead body? Come out quickly. Something happened. Come out. Come out. The old man's dark voice rang out in this silent warehouse, and to be honest, it was still very lethal. Almost everyone within a radius of 300 meters heard the old man's roar. Villa, the store manager who was directly named, ran down from the store manager's office on the 2nd floor, shouting as he ran. What's wrong? What's wrong? What happened? Get up. Get up. Something happened. Something happened. Then he found the main switch of the warehouse at the back door of the building materials store. It was a knife switch that was pushed up, and then the whole warehouse was lit up. At this time, everyone gathered in the center of the warehouse while putting on their clothes, and then saw Almisha, who was very embarrassed, and the angry old butler Jamal. No one could figure out what was going on. As the store manager of the building materials store and a senior official of the Singh family, Viral was the first to ask the old housekeeper, "Mr. Housekeeper, why did you wake everyone up? Did someone steal cement and asbestos tiles from the building materials store?" Most of the people who could live in the building materials store were servants brought by the Singh family, and some were villagers from Laga village. They had been slaves of the Singh family for generations, and they were considered their own people. There was no need to hide it, so the old housekeeper turned around, pulled Almisha, who was keeping his head down and not saying anything, over, and kicked him again and cursed, "This bastard, tell us what happened, the sooner the better, and try to deal with this troublesome and difficult matter as soon as possible. You did it, so are you too embarrassed to say it again?" At this time, everyone's attention was focused on Almisha in the middle. With the weak light, these people saw Musha's embarrassed appearance. "Your face is like instant noodles. The buttons of the clothes are buttoned upside down. The belt of the pants is exposed, and the shoes are worn upside down. It must be something wrong to look so embarrassed." When Almisha said the beastly act he had committed, all the people in the building materials store were shocked. The usually honest Almisha was so crazy, almost crazy to the point of being hungry. Is the dark 30-year-old middle-aged woman on the other side so attractive? When a 20-year-old boy can't control himself, what's going on? At this time, the store manager Mr. Weir is worthy of being a high school graduate. He is still knowledgeable and knows the seriousness of the situation. He also knows why the old housekeeper is so anxious. It's urgent, so there is no time to talk nonsense. After Almisha explained the whole story, without the old housekeeper's instructions, the store manager Mr. Weir was furious. He jumped up and slapped Almisha a few times, and then screamed to the shocked people around him, "Everyone, get moving. Take your flashlights and go out to search, especially in the direction of Yuba village where Harsuk lives. Hurry up and bring this Ramasuk back alive. If she dies, we won't be able to explain ourselves." With a bang, more than a dozen people at the scene turned around and ran back to their rooms, taking flashlights. Bicyclists and runners all scattered to look for Ramasuk, the victim. Even Almisha consciously returned to his room with a flashlight and ran out. After seeing these people taking action, Manager Will invited the old butler to his room. The two sat together and began to discuss how to minimize the impact. How to resolve the pressure of public opinion and let the Singh family hand over Almisha is impossible. If you can't protect your family's servants, how can you live in Sinja town with dignity? Chapter 81. Turbulence in the city. Just as Jamal, the old butler of the Singh family, and Vilor, the store manager of Singh building materials store, were discussing countermeasures on the second floor, the people in the entire building materials store began to scatter, holding flashlights to go out to look for the female victim, Ramasuk. They made a mistake in their haste and did not block the news first, allowing the outside world to get the scandal of Singh auction house. How did the scandal leak out? It was caused by negligence. The incident happened at around 7 or 8 o'clock in the afternoon, although it was already dark. The Central Cross commercial street was still very prosperous, and the streets were full of people. Suddenly, a disheveled woman rushed out of Singh building materials store. A crying woman ran out, and the neighboring shops on the left and right or the idle people who often wandered around knew who this woman was. That was the wife of Harsuk who was mortgaged to the building materials store, 30-year-old Ramasuk. A woman ran out in dishevel and crying. Without culture and knowledge, you can think with your buttocks, and you know what happened? A few minutes later, the entire building materials store took action, and the staff of Singh building materials store chased out with flashlights. Seeing some neighbors watching the excitement on the street, they asked them if they saw the disheveled Ramasuk run out of the building materials store and run in a certain direction, whether she went back to her home, Ula village, or ran in another direction. Some of the people who were asked told the truth, while others lied. It all depended on their personal judgment. The person who told the truth really told the people in the building materials store that the woman who ran out went to the direction of Ula village, so two people rode bicycles and chased after her in the direction of Ula village. They caught up with the panicked Lamasuk at the door of a grocery store in the suburbs, but Lamasuk was crying and making a fuss, so they tied the bicycle and forcibly took her back to Sing building materials store. Seeing that the raped woman was brought back safely, both the old housekeeper and the store manager were relieved. Then someone arranged to monitor Lamasuk 24 hours a day and never let this woman commit suicide. If she really died, it would be hard to explain. The two men were about to breathe a sigh of relief when they saw that the victim had been found. They discussed that Jamal, the housekeeper, would go to Ula village in person tomorrow morning to apologize to Harsuk. They would try to get the victim's family to shut up, and everything would be easy if the Suk family did not pursue the victim's family. If the victim's family shut up, how could public opinion start to quarrel? But unexpectedly, just when he was about to breathe a sigh of relief, the old housekeeper Jamal glanced downstairs. Wow, there was a crowd of people pointing and talking on the first floor of the building materials store. Although it was difficult to hear what they were talking about because of the glass, it was clear that the Singh family was in trouble this time when they saw the people laughing and scolding. Even the knowledgeable old housekeeper was so anxious that he was at a loss when he saw this situation, and he kept wandering around in the office and talking. Damn it, who leaked the news? How come these people gathered around the building materials store? Did they know what happened in our family? Look at how happy they are. They must have known. What should we do? Manager Weir was also very worried. He felt very incredible when he saw the old housekeeper was so anxious that he lost his mind. The old man had seen all kinds of storms. How could he be so anxious over such a small problem? He didn't even have a plan. This was unlike the old man. Although the old man was very anxious, his eyes were clear and he always looked in his direction intentionally or unintentionally, which made Weir, the store manager, feel moved and thought to himself, oh, the old man seems to be flying around like a headless fly, with no constructive suggestions to solve the problem, and he is in a mess. In fact, he is testing me. Is it the old man's intention or Master Singh's intention? If I pass the test, it will definitely help my future development. It seems that this is an opportunity, and I must not let it go. Speaking of this, Manager Weir breathed a sigh of relief and rolled his eyes. He had already made up his mind before he stepped forward. He first comforted the old butler, Mr. Jamal, and then suggested, "Old butler, I suggest that I go to Ula village overnight and visit Harsuk in person. First, comfort the victim's family, and then we will solve the pressure of instant noodles. If it doesn't work, we will notify our Master Singh to see how it works. This method is not a brilliant method, but it is a method that can solve the problem." The old butler intends to test Weir through this matter, so of course he has to play a good role, and said timidly, okay, we'll go now and try to deal with the victim's family first. As long as the victim's family does not make trouble, public opinion will not rise. If public opinion cannot rise to attack the Singh family, we will win. Seeing the surprised face of the old butler, if he had not been prepared, he would have been deceived by the old butler. Since he had to do it well, when he met the challenge, Will also knew that this was not the time to be polite. He first appeased the old butler and acted as a warning in the building materials store. Then Will took two staff members to the street and used his mobile phone, a communication tool that the Singh family admired, to contact a truck driver who had business dealings with Singh building materials store and come to Singh auction house to do some business. Half an hour later, Will took a truck to Ula village. Although Ula village was only 15 kilometers away from Sinja town, there was also a dirt road facing it, but Ulas had no electricity. The people and livestock in the village relied on wells for drinking water, and there was no tap water. Although there were farmlands all around, the planting effect was not very good. After asking around, he finally arrived at Harsuk's home. As soon as he entered the yard, he saw all kinds of building materials piled up all over the yard. The family was eating around the campfire, with 4 children, big and small, and a 17-year-old girl. Although she was dark-skinned and not very pretty, she was young and the male owner of the family. Harsuk knew he had found the right place. for the few people who suddenly appeared, especially the signing store manager who mortgaged his first wife to construction bank. He actually appeared in his home. Did something happen to the first wife of the mortgaged building materials store? Ha-suk was nervous. Although his relationship with his first wife was not very good. After all, she gave birth to 4 children for him and shared the joys and sorrows with him. If something happened to his wife, Ha-suk would not forgive himself. So he stood up tremblingly and asked stutteringly, "Are you manager Will from Singer Building Materials Store? What's the matter with you coming to my house so late at night? Did something happen to my wife at Singer Building Materials Store?" At this time, Will looked around. It was dinner time. Although there were no lights in the village, every household had lit a bonfire. In addition, the loud noise made by the car had already alarmed other villagers. Everyone gathered around in 2s and 3s. With so many people, it was not easy to explain the reason for their visit, so he had to make up a lie and said to Ha-suk anxiously, "Mr. Suk, your wife burned her feet when checking the number of Singer Building Materials Store. It's too late to send her to the central hospital in the town. I'm here to pick you up. Your wife has been yelling that she wants to see you." Chapter 82, Make an Offer. Hearing that his wife had scalded her feet was a heavy blow in rural areas because the climate in India is very hot. In addition, the sanitary conditions in rural areas are not very good, and there are mosquitoes and flies everywhere. Burns, especially large-scale burns, will cause blisters, and the skin will fall off, and the soft tissue inside will be exposed, which is very easy to be infected by bacteria. Therefore, burns in rural India are a very serious accident, with a mortality rate of 20%. Of course, most of these mortality rates are caused by infection. In addition, the economic conditions in rural areas are really not very good, and few people can afford treatment costs, so burns are timely to avoid the risk of infection after recovery. There is also a high probability of leaving a disability. Leaving a disability in rural India and being unable to do physical work will put the family into endless difficulties, whether it is a man or a woman. Fortunately, my wife was scalded in Singh Building Materials Store, and Singh Building Materials Store will not stand idly by no matter what. It is not easy to send my wife to the hospital for treatment. Of course, the male host must be present to coordinate some things, so I quickly put down the plate in my hand. He explained in detail to his newly married wife and the eldest daughter who could be half the family, and then went to the cabinet of the straw shed where the family lived to find the few thousand rupees left in the house, and then followed the store manager Weir to get on the truck. Along the way, Ha-suk asked in detail about his wife's condition and whether it was serious. But the store manager Weir always avoided the question. He did not answer directly. When he arrived in the town, he did not go directly to the only Chinese and Western hospital in the town, but came to the commercial street and returned to Singh Building Materials Store. Ha-suk felt puzzled, but still followed the store manager Weir in. He went all the way to the office on the 2nd floor and sat on the leather sofa that he had not sat on for more than 40 years and asked anxiously, "Mr. Weir, my wife Ha-suk was sent to the hospital? Let's go now. I want to see how badly my wife was injured." In the office, there were only the old butler Jamal and Weir and 2 very strong staff members, facing Ha-suk who still didn't understand the situation. "Mr. Suk, I'm sorry, I lied to you. Didn't your wife's foot get burned? But there was indeed an accident. I hope you can calmly negotiate with us to resolve this matter. After all, if the matter gets out of hand, it will not be a glorious thing for you or our Singh family. I hope you can calm down after hearing what happened. If you have any requests, just mention that our Singh family can satisfy you. But if you want to be a rogue, you also know how powerful the Singh family is. We can talk to you properly or not. If the talks fail, you must know what the consequences will be." These words were spoken with intimidation and threats. Will did this only to protect the interests of the Singh family. As for the untouchables of the Suk family, he could not control their life or death. One is conscience, and the other is his own future. It goes without saying which one he needs to choose. After hearing these words, Ha-suk felt that the situation was serious. He was a fool to let Mr. Will, the powerful manager of the building materials store, personally run to Will village to pick him up, and then say these threatening words. He could hear that something big had happened. Sure enough, after the store manager Weir finished speaking, he signaled a staff member to go downstairs and call up Almisha, who had finally recovered. The abuser was asked to face the victim's husband and tell him what happened and apologized proactively. Although Harsuk was not well educated, he had some experience in using a tricycle to transport goods in the town. He knew that impulsiveness would not have good results. If he was impulsive, it would always be the untouchables of the Shudras who would suffer, so he needed to calm down. After a careful observation, the young man who was scratched into a bloody good by his wife's resistance had some characteristics in his words and deeds, and he concluded in his heart that the abuser was of the same caste as himself, that is, the Shudra. If you are not a noble lord, why should I be polite to you? Although you are richer than me, I'm not afraid. What's more, we are the victims who are right. Although I dare not compete with the Singh family, I can't touch you, a servant of the Singh family. So Harsuk, who felt humiliated, jumped up from the sofa as soon as he heard half of the story, intending to show the courage and dignity of a man to the abuser. But before he could do anything, the thin Harsuk was pressed back on the sofa by two strong young men. This experience made Harsuk sober up all of a sudden. Seeing the silent noble housekeeper and the young store manager looking at him with unfriendly eyes, Harsuk suddenly realized. Why did the other party pick him up at night? Why didn't they have the opportunity to call the police directly? And what was the purpose of trapping him and his wife in this building materials store? Harsuk knew everything. This was the Singh family's demonstration to him. The Singh family wanted to protect the abuser Almisha, saying that they wanted him to negotiate conditions. It was just to give him some hush money, so that he and his wife would no longer pursue the legal responsibility of the abuser. The enemy was strong, and I was weak. I was just a man riding a tricycle to transport goods. Facing the Singh family, that even the mayor was afraid of, I had no chance of winning. It's better to be pragmatic, otherwise neither he nor his wife can go out. Although the other party is very domineering, he also gave him the reason to ask for compensation. He himself suggested to go out first, so Harsuk, who had calmed down, wiped the cold sweat on his head and stammered. My request is very simple, just let my wife Harsuk be safe and sound. After hearing this request, the old housekeeper nodded and asked another male staff member to go downstairs. Not long after, the crying and struggling of a woman downstairs were heard in the office. Then when the door was opened with footsteps, a woman from the Minister of Clothing was dragged in. Harsuk recognized it at a glance. This was his wife. After the two couples met, they hugged each other and cried bitterly. After a long time, Harsuk calmed down and made his second request. The second request is to block the news. I don't want to become a laughing stock of men in the town. I also don't want my wife to choose to commit suicide in the face of great public pressure. This request is relatively reliable. The Singh family is afraid of the public pressure of millions of people around Sinjar town and feel unbearable. Moreover, a rural Shudra family would be driven crazy by such social pressure. This request seemed simple, but were those people watching downstairs blind? As the saying goes, the eyes of the masses are sharp, and the truth cannot be hidden. These people caught the evidence. It was impossible to suppress the pressure of public opinion. In less than 3 days, more than 1 million people around Sinjar town would know about the scandal of Singh Building Materials Store. Chapter 83, What You Fear Will Come True. The Singh family knew that the truth would come out sooner or later, and rumors would be flying everywhere tomorrow morning, but they had to make arrangements for the Suk family today. Let the victim's family choose to shut up first, and wait for things to calm down, and everyone will forget about it, so stabilizing the Suk family is the most important thing. The old housekeeper nodded shamelessly and said, don't worry, this matter is known to everyone in the building materials store, and I don't know it now. As long as you don't say it, who would know that your wife would suffer such a bad fate if we don't say it? Old man, this is a lie with open eyes, and his face is not red. This is considered shameless, and he is the best candidate to be the housekeeper. As for that hard laborer Hasu, how much can he know? Seeing the old housekeeper's assurance to himself, he thought it was true. The second condition was just fooled away, and Hasu started to talk about his third condition. My third condition is that the abuser must be punished, and my wife must be compensated for such unfair treatment. Otherwise we will not let it go." Before manager Weir could speak, the old housekeeper spoke first and asked coldly, "So how much money do you want, Mr. Shook? Just tell us. Our Singer family is not short of your money. I will give you a number and we will meet your request, but you must meet our requirements after you get the money." Seeing that the old housekeeper agreed to make financial compensation, Harsuk was very excited and automatically ignored the second half of the old housekeeper's words. Ignoring the last sentence was the most fatal, and it was also the fuse for the rupture between the two parties. After comforting his wife who was still crying in his arms, Harsuk clicked his chapped lips and said excitedly, "We want 100,000 rupees. 100,000 rupees is a huge sum of money for us civilian Shudras, but it is just a drop in the bucket for the Singh family. If you want to solve the problem, you can't see it without 100,000 rupees. How dare you ask for it? 100,000 rupees is equivalent to 8,000 or 9,000 yuan in compensation, which is not a small amount even in China. In this remote rural area of India, it is an astronomical amount of compensation. It's really daring to ask for 100,000 yuan. But as long as the problem is solved with money, it is not a problem. It is the consensus reached by the rich." The old housekeeper nodded and agreed with a smile. "Okay, 100,000 rupees. I promise you will not pursue legal responsibility." Only then did Harsuk realize how important the point he overlooked was. Who said he would not pursue legal responsibility? Raped his wife. Is it over? The perpetrator did not get the punishment he deserved. How could he be worthy of his wife who had suffered with him and mortgaged the building materials store? Compensation is compensation, and the perpetrator must get the punishment he deserved. So Harsuk was not happy and shouted loudly, "We have a promise. The compensation is compensation, but the perpetrator must get the due punishment. I know that this person is a servant of yours in Jez family. Let's proceed according to the legal judgment. He should pay the due price. If our people are going to jail, why should we talk to you? Will we still give you 100,000 rupees in compensation? Are we just going to let our people go to jail and that's it? It is because we don't want our people to go to jail that we choose to sit here and negotiate with you." I didn't expect that Harsuk was so unenlightened. He said so much, but I still didn't know what he meant. The old man felt very annoyed. Seeing that Harsuk dared to speak at length in front of him, he really didn't know what he meant. The old man got angry and slammed the table and shouted, "I'll tell you clearly that the reason we can sit here and negotiate with you calmly is because we don't want our people to go to jail. If they go to jail, the compensation will be gone. This is 100,000 rupees. Think about it carefully." As soon as the words 100,000 rupees came out, Harsuk, who was shouting just now, immediately became silent like a rooster with its neck strangled. 100,000 rupees. That's a huge sum of money. Who wouldn't be tempted? The dowry brought by the 17-year-old wife he just married was only worth 20,000 rupees. It has made him a small fortune. He can build his own house into a high-end cement house and even use asbestos tiles. 100,000 rupees is equivalent to the value of marrying 5 wives. Do you think this Shudra who has always lived at the bottom of society cannot be tempted? On the one hand, there is a huge sum of 100,000 rupees. If the perpetrator is put in jail, then the Singh family will use their connections to get the servant out of jail, no matter how many years the court sentences him. The abuser was lucky to be able to stay in jail for 2 months. By then, his wife was hurt, and he had not received any compensation. Isn't it a bit of a loss? After weighing the pros and cons, Harsuk kept silent. He whispered to his wife and finally chose to ask for 100,000 rupees in compensation. As for whether the abuser should be sent to court for sentencing, even if the Suk family had this idea, they did not have the power to do it, let alone the strength to do it. 2 hours later, the Suk couple, holding 100,000 rupees in cash, returned to Ula village in a truck. When Ramashak saw that she had married a young and beautiful 17-year-old wife during the period when her husband mortgaged her to the building materials store, she was so angry that she didn't mention it, but the smart Ramashak chose to endure it. After all, she didn't defend her husband's dignity and her own female shame today and chose to commit suicide, which was a big mistake. It was a blessing that her husband didn't hold her responsible, so how could she dare to cry, make a fuss, and hang herself to solve the problem of the mistress? The family was quiet, but unexpectedly, at dawn the next day, Harsuk heard the bustling noise outside the yard while he was still holding his little wife. After rubbing his eyes and getting up and opening the door, he saw all the old and young men of Willow Village. Before Harsuk could speak and ask why these people came, he was scolded. The scolding was so ugly, saying all kinds of things, all centered on one theme: Harsuk is not a man. Since he could tolerate his wife being raped and chose to remain silent, he had lost the face of the whole Willow Village. It was a shame for the whole Willow Village. Everyone unanimously decided to drive the Harsuk family out of the village. Otherwise, how could the girls in the village marry outside? And how could the boys in the village marry wives? It was good to have such a family of troubles in the village, so the old and young men in the village united and issued an ultimatum to the Harsuk family early in the morning. Don't build the house, get out of here, you can die wherever you want, it's none of our business. The men and women cursed for more than an hour and finally dispersed. But they didn't expect that 2 minutes later, the women in the village began to unite again, came to the door of Harsuk's house, and started to curse with their hands on their hips. What they said was so ugly, it just sounded like one thing: why didn't Lamasuk, who was raped, choose to commit suicide, to uphold the traditional morality of women? And he had the nerve to return to the village alive, so as not to bring shame to the women in the village? The guy was bombarded by the men and women in the village early in the morning, and no one could stand it. Chapter 84, Seriously Injured, Dying. Lamasuk returned home last night and spent the night carefully. The next morning, he endured the pain, silently shed tears, and prepared to make breakfast for his family. But he didn't expect that before the fire was lit, the old and young men in the village began to riot. They scolded them at the door of their house, and then wanted to drive them out of Willow Village. Lamasuk, who had always been virtuous and kind, was frightened and hid in the ruins of her home, and dared not come out. She was afraid that, if she showed up, these excited old and young men in Willow Village would catch her and beat her to death in public. A few years ago, there was a young woman in Willow Village who had an affair with someone else. Her husband caught the lover and didn't get any decent punishment. But this young woman actually beat her husband to the street and beheaded him on the spot, and then wandered around the street with the bleeding head. But she didn't suffer any criminal punishment, and even the old and young men in Willow Village jointly guaranteed that this woman would maintain her male dignity. The real man who maintained the social atmosphere of Willow Village was exempted from criminal punishment. The murderer was fined for such a serious matter as beheading in public. If it weren't for me, the victim who discredited the whole village, I would be beaten to death if I appeared in front of people. It doesn't matter if I die, but what about the 4 children and the family? The 14-year-old eldest daughter has not found a family yet because she has not saved enough dowry. If I, as a mother, were alive, I would still be able to save dowry for my eldest daughter. Try to let your eldest daughter marry a good man. If I appear in front of these excited villagers and get beaten to death, then can the 17-year-old stepmother that Harsuk married back do her best for her eldest daughter who is about to get married and needs a large dowry? It is a blessing that I don't sell my eldest daughter to the temple to make money. In this way, my eldest daughter will be ruined. What about the other 3 children? Although the family is poor and can't afford to send them to school, they can still let these children grow up safely. It would be good if these children fall into the hands of the cruel stepmother and don't go out to beg. At a young age, they were sent to work in those dangerous small workshops by their hateful stepmothers. They had not grown up, and they would not be healthy after being tired like this. So Lamasuk could not die, no matter how humiliated or wronged she was, she could not die. She had no right to choose death to relieve her sins. Her life was not her own, but the lives of her 4 children. As for what to do with her husband Harsuk, it was easier to solve the problem. He married a concubine and had a tricycle to go to the town to transport and make money. He would not starve to death without him. So Lamasuk, who was hiding, did not dare to come out or show his face. but you can hide from others but not from your husband. Hasuk, who thought he had covered up the matter, got up early in the morning and was scolded by the old and young men of the whole Walla village. Seeing that the truth could not be hidden, the rape of his wife was finally known to the whole village, and he lost face as the head of the family. People are like this. When encountering things, they always want to shirk their responsibilities. You say you don't have to build a house. If you don't have money and mortgage your wife to CCB to be a maid, can these things happen? But he didn't say that he was responsible, but blamed everything on his wife, who was also a victim. He was bullied outside and didn't dare to resist, but he took it out on his wife. This is the legacy of the so-called male chauvinism in India. He found his first wife, Lamasak, hiding in the ruins and dragged her out. He punched and kicked her and scolded her while beating her. You damn bitch, why did you bring me such humiliation? Didn't you see how those old and young men scolded me? You have ruined my dignity. Why don't you die? Go die, go die. After beating and scolding, he was still not satisfied, so he picked up a wooden stick left over from the demolition of the adobe house nearby and beat her head but without caring about it, Lamasak, who was already seriously injured, fell to the ground and screamed. Several children looked at him in horror and didn't dare to come forward to help. The new wife sat there with a smile, dyeing her nails red with cheap nail polish while cheering. If the first wife was beaten to death, the second wife would naturally take the position and become the mistress of the family. It would be much better than being bullied behind the first wife. Of course, she would be happy to get rid of a competitor. Hasuku, who was scolded and eager to regain his male dignity, did not hold back when he attacked. He knocked the man unconscious on the ground with a stick. His head was bleeding, his left forearm was broken, and the dark white bone had been clearly seen outside the flesh. His knee was also severely injured. Even if he was cured, he would only be left with a disabled leg that could not be bent. The beating was fierce enough, but Hasuku, who was bloodshot, did not intend to let his poor first wife go. When he saw that there was no movement, he raised the wooden stick in his hand and wanted to hit Ramasak's temple. He just wanted to get rid of this woman who brought shame to the family. He was going to kill her. It was really strange that the husband was so ruthless. But the 14-year-old girl heard her mother's detailed account of the whole incident yesterday, and of course she knew that her father was responsible for this. Now she saw her father shirking responsibility and wanted to beat her mother to death. If her mother died, she would be left without a mother. How could these 4 children be safe under the hands of their stepmother? She had to save her mother's life at all costs, so the little girl, who didn't know where she got the courage from, picked up the big iron spoon in the pot and swung the stick to hit her father, who wanted to kill her mother, on the back of his head. This hit was heavy enough to knock Hasuk, who was at the peak of his male sexuality, to the ground. Then she anxiously ran to the shack, where the whole family was hiding from the rain and wind, found some rags, and tore them apart with scissors, and asked her 3 younger brothers and sisters to help hold her mother first. In order to prevent death from excessive bleeding, the little girl knew that her father would take her mother's life when he woke up, so staying at home was a dead end. She actually put the 100,000 rupees in cash that her father brought back last night into her younger brother's school bag, and then the siblings worked together to move their unconscious mother onto the tricycle. But at this time, the 17-year-old stepmother refused to do it. This was 100,000 rupees. If this little girl took it away, how would the family live? If Hasuk couldn't repay the installment of Zinj building materials store, she would have to sell herself to pay off the debt. In fact, this mistress, who had no other advantages in terms of women except for her age, thought too much during the negotiation last night. The 26,000 rupees in arrears had been wiped out, so what was there to repay? Seeing that her stepmother wanted to stop her from taking her mother away, the little girl was furious and fought with this stepmother, who was only a few years older. Several younger brothers and sisters also came forward to help. Some hugged her legs and some bit her legs. The 4 siblings worked together, and the 17-year-old stepmother was really no match for her. She was knocked down and screamed like a pig. The stepmother cried and covered her calf that was bitten by the little boy. The stepmother, who was unable to get up, was unable to stop the siblings from running away from home. Finally, the siblings rode a tricycle and escaped from Woola village with their mother. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 85. Poor children grow up early. The little girl rode a tricycle, followed by her 3 brothers and sisters pushing the tricycle. The whole process of escaping from Woola village was quite legendary. Although the little girl had never been to school and could not read a few words, she was very smart. With the help of her brothers and sisters, she lifted her mother onto the tricycle and covered her with a reed curtain that is common in India. After covering her mother's body, the little girl rode the tricycle, while the youngest of her 3 brothers and sisters took care of her mother in the car, and the 2 brothers and sisters pushed the tricycle behind. The riding speed was very fast, and the big noise in Woola village early in the morning made the old and young men scold for more than an hour. The old woman scolded for more than an hour, and after being tired of scolding, she planned to go home to make breakfast, and she had to complete her livelihood for the day or she would starve. A tricycle rushed out of Harsuk's house, and the riders turned out to be Harsuk's eldest daughter and several children. Everyone didn't see what was on the car clearly. After all, there was a reed curtain blocking it, and the eldest daughter Jimasuk would not even respond to the greetings, and would just speed through. In this way, they ran out of Woola village, and came to the entrance of the village, where there were no outsiders. After that, the 14-year-old Jima girl finally breathed a sigh of relief. Although she has escaped with her life, where to go with her mother and several younger brothers and sisters has become the girl's top priority. Now the whole Woola village is in riot. If she returns to the village, where her uncle lives with her seriously injured mother, she will definitely die. She may even be handed over to her father by her grandmother or uncle, to deal with her seriously injured mother and several children. Will she still be alive at that time? But where to go? Just when the little girl was hesitating, the little brother who was taking care of her mother in the car reminded her with a word. Mom, wake up quickly. Which bad guy bullied you? I will seek revenge on him when I grow up. Just this sentence reminded the little girl that her mother had become like this and was almost beaten to death by the enemy. The culprit was of course the murderer who committed a heinous crime. He wanted to take responsibility. He wanted to take full responsibility. The little girl was like a blessing coming to her heart. She planned to ride a bicycle with her 3 younger brothers and sisters and her seriously injured mother to the town to ask for an explanation. Although the little girl had never been to school, she had been learning the planting experience in the farmland with her mother at home. She rarely came to the town, but she knew the way to the town. If she didn't know how to read, wouldn't she ask if there was no mouth under her nose? Singer Building Materials Store was so famous that it was almost a monopoly industry. Who in the town didn't know it? What about the exact address of Singer Building Materials Store? This made the little girl feel very excited, as if she saw the dawn of survival, and she called on the 2 younger brothers and sisters who were pushing the cart behind to push harder. She pedaled the very large human-powered tricycle hard to rush to the town. After 2 hours of hard work, she finally arrived at Singer Building Materials Store. On the way, the little girl and several younger brothers and sisters heard some bad comments about her mother and Singer Building Materials Store. Almost everyone in the town knew about the scandal of Singer Building Materials Store. As the saying goes, people's words are scary. 3 people make a tiger, and 100 messages make a lie become the truth. All the public opinion in the whole town is focused on Singer Building Materials Store. Some people say that the Singh family bullies people by taking advantage of their power, bullies ordinary people, bullies men and women, and does all kinds of evil. Some people hold another view, that is, whether the creditor has the right to deal with it as collateral. Besides, rape is not a big crime in India. Even if there is a rape case every now and then in the small town of Sinjar, everyone is used to it. India is not called the country of rape for nothing. It has formed a social bad habit from ancient times to the present. How can you let them change this habit? No matter where you go, people are talking about their mother and Singer Building Materials Store, which puts a lot of pressure on the little girl. She dared not let her seriously injured mother show up. After many inquiries, she finally found Singh Building Materials Store, then bypassed the busy commercial street to the entrance of the warehouse, and rushed in on a tricycle when no one was paying attention. Now it was a turbulent time for Singh Building Materials Store. Almost everything seemed like an enemy. A little girl rushed in on a tricycle with 3 children. It was impossible not to notice them, so 2 staff members tried to drive them away. But they didn't expect the little girl to jump off the tricycle and lift the reed curtain on the tricycle. At this time, everyone noticed that the seriously injured person in the tricycle was Lamasak, who had just left with her husband tonight. At this time, the little girl shouted to the office on the 2nd floor with her high-pitched voice that was unique to girls. "Murderer, the murderer who raped my mother, come out and see what you have done. If you don't give us an explanation, I will not leave today with my mother and my brothers and sisters. Anyway, my father will beat me to death if I go back. You won't give me an explanation, so you can just beat us to death. Anyway, your Singh family is rich and powerful, and you don't need the money to buy lives. Come out." The little girl's scream was so piercing that it could be heard clearly on the 2nd floor. The old housekeeper on the 2nd floor was discussing how to reduce the pressure of public opinion and whether to notify the master who was on his honeymoon in Malaysia to come back. And the store manager will listened carefully and clearly. The two looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. They were fine last night, loving each other. Why did he beat his wife to death this morning? Whether it is true or not, this matter will become a big deal. It will be impossible to cover it up. Can paper cover fire? Can a child be buried in the snow? What should be faced will be faced sooner or later. The two looked at each other and saw the helplessness in each other's eyes. After discussing all night, the plan could not catch up with the speed of change. Countless solutions have been discussed, but it is useless if things do not develop in the direction you want. The two had no choice but to divide the work. The old man picked up his phone and notified the Belsing couple who were on vacation in Malaysia to come back quickly. If it was a few days later, the Singh family would be in trouble in Sinja town. It is not easy to build a good reputation, and it is too fast to ruin it. Who will buy your cement and asbestos tiles if the wind stinks for 30 miles? The Singh family will be unable to recover if they close down the 2 large sites. By then, they can keep the thousands of acres of land in the Laga Valley. Although they will not starve to death, it is impossible to become rich. Now the old man is just worried about how to tell the whole story to Master Singh. If the master gets angry, Almasha, who he has high hopes for, will definitely be punished by the master. He may even break his legs and beg on the street. Then a 20-year-old young man will be ruined. The old man was worried. The store manager came to the warehouse and saw the bloody Ramasak. Weir, who had asked about the whole incident, was even more worried. What should we do about this matter? We had a good discussion last night, but this morning, the plan changed. So many accidents happened. Now the daughter of the victim has brought her 3 younger brothers and sisters to ask for an explanation. No matter how powerful the Singh family is, you can't bully orphans and widows. If this matter is not handled well, it will cause a big hidden danger. What should we do then? Who can bear this responsibility? It seems that it can't be handled well unless his boss, Master Belsing, comes back. Chapter 86, Rushing back angrily. It's over. The situation is serious. Now I can't cover it up. The old housekeeper is so old and has experienced everything. He quickly calmed down and quickly directed the people around him, especially the culprit Almisha, to use a tricycle to quickly send the seriously injured victim to the hospital, and he was rushed to the operating room for surgery. After all, head injuries are not a joke and can die at any time. As for the cost of treatment, it will be borne by the Singh family. The doctors use the best doctors and the best drugs. In a word, save lives first. Since the little girl Jimasuk is already 14 years old and can be used by an adult, she went to the hospital with the staff to take care of her mother. The remaining 3 children were placed on the 2nd floor of the building materials store. They must eat and drink and take good care of these children. After arranging these things, the tricycle flew out of the warehouse of the building materials store in the hands of several big men. At this time, the housekeeper came to the 2nd floor work area with his hands behind his back. He hesitated for a long time after grabbing the phone, and then he gritted his teeth and dialed Belsina's mobile number. What was Belsina doing at this time? He was enjoying the sunset on the sunny beach in Malaysia. He was tasting a lobster that was more than a foot long and drinking wine with his wife. He was eating happily when his mobile phone rang. As soon as he saw the phone number above, he knew it was a call from the building materials store. Did the building materials store have any problems? Otherwise, the entire Singh family knew that he was taking his wife on a honeymoon, and they would definitely not disturb him if there was nothing urgent. So Belsina was still worried in his heart. He frowned and answered the phone, and heard the voice of the old butler Jamal. Something happened in the master's house, and the matter is very tricky. You need to deal with it personally. Haha, what you fear will come true. Can't you let yourself be quiet for a while when you go out with your wife on a honeymoon? You are experienced, and you are shirking responsibility for anything you can't handle. It seems that this matter is not small. So Belsina put down the drink in his hand, grabbed the cigarette box on the table, took out a cigarette and lit it, then frowned and said, "Tell me what trouble you have encountered first. I will see if it is worth it for me to go back. Mr. Butler, do you know that it is the honeymoon period for Lina and I now? If there is anything serious, I need to deal with it personally." The old butler knew that his own master Singh must be the prelude to a volcanic eruption. It would be strange if he was not angry if anyone disturbed his honeymoon. But the old butler did not dare to hide anything and told the whole cause and effect of the whole thing, and he was biased towards Al-Musha in his words and deeds. This is the advantage of living in the Singh family since childhood. No matter what, they are all family members. Who would not be on their side? Lina saw Belsina answering a phone call, and then his face changed drastically and finally began to become ferocious, and she was shocked in her heart. What on earth could make her brother Bel so angry? Could it be that someone in the family absconded with the money? No, it seems that there has been no precedent in India for thousands of years for a slave who dared to steal his master's money to escape. How could such an accident happen to me? So I was very worried. A pair of small hands grabbed Belsina's hands, which were exposed due to excessive anger, and comforted him gently. Seeing his wife's worried look, Belsina felt very guilty. He forced a smile to show that he was fine, and then asked on the phone, "How is that woman? Is she dead or alive? Can she be saved? If she is really dead, it will be a big trouble." The old housekeeper is experienced. Although he is not a doctor, he can still tell whether a person is dead or alive. He said softly to comfort her, "Don't worry, sir. This woman looks seriously injured and covered in blood, but in fact, it's just superficial injuries. The most important thing is not her head, but her knees. The husband was hit with a stick and his knees and leg bones were all broken. The white bones were exposed. Even if he is cured, he will be a cripple dragging one leg. It's a pity that this woman is very capable and virtuous. It's a pity that she suffered such a bad fate. What a pity, isn't it, because you didn't discipline the male servants in your house and let them do evil things. But now there are too few people available in his hands. The old butler is loyal to him." Belsina didn't want to make the old butler feel sad, so he just suppressed the anger in his heart and said, "I know everything. Since there is still half a month of vacation left to complete the goal. But such a big thing happened at home. I can't just stand by and watch, let alone have fun on this sunny beach. I will book a flight to take people back tomorrow morning, and keep that damn Al-Musha for me. Let him accompany her in the hospital for 24 hours. If there is any problem with that woman, I will take his head to thank the world. Master, it's not that serious, right? Isn't it? Just that you didn't control your belt and committed rape? What kind of crime is rape in India? After all, we are one of our own people. Is it necessary to punish one of our own people because of an outsider?" Hearing Belsina's murderous words, the old housekeeper was really scared. Don't look at the little master who looks chubby and harmless. If he really uses ruthless means, it would be quite cruel. Nothing can be explained clearly on the phone, so I can only go back and solve it. After comforting the old housekeeper, he hung up the phone and breathed a sigh of relief. Looking up at Lina, who looked worried, he smiled reluctantly and said, "These useless servants are always causing trouble for me. Now that things have gotten out of hand, they don't know how to deal with it, so they remembered me. Am I the master or their toilet paper? When there is trouble, the master comes out to solve it. Why do we need these servants? I'm really angry. It seems that our plan, to learn diving and paddling to collect pearls for you, can only be put on hold. This is a honeymoon trip. I feel so sorry for you. Lina smiled very sensibly, moved her chair, and sat flat with Belsing. She leaned her head gently on the solid shoulder of her brother, and said with a smile, "It doesn't matter. With you here, it doesn't matter, even if we live in the Laga Valley. With you here, every day is a honeymoon trip. It's important to deal with the business. The Singh family has finally shown signs of rising. Don't let these little things become stumbling blocks. That would be bad. After everything is stable, we can go out and play at any time. Isn't that right?" Yes, 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 the little girl is right. She is really a kind little girl who always thinks about her husband. She is a qualified wife. What more could a husband ask for with such a wife? He changed his posture and held the little girl in his arms, watching the orange sun sinking into the sea little by little. His mood seemed to calm down a little, and when it got dark, he returned to the thatched cottage by the beach of the hotel. As soon as he entered the living room, he saw little Jamal barefoot holding an extra large fruit salad in his arms. He was watching TV, eating, and giggling there, so he got so angry that he kicked little Jamal, and he was stunned before he said, "Don't be lazy, call and book a flight. Fly to Jaipur tomorrow morning, and let's go back quickly. Something happened at home." Chapter 87, I'll beat you to death, you useless thing. When Jamal saw his master's livid face, he knew that the situation was serious. Although he was worried about whether his grandfather was involved in this matter, Jamal didn't dare to ask or say anything. He jumped up from the floor and ran out like crazy and found the hotel service desk to order a flight to Jaipur at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Then he returned to Singh's room and began to pack things under the command of his wife Lina, and then packed them. Because I had just finished half of my dinner on the beach, when I answered the phone, I was full and didn't eat half of it. But at more than 11 o'clock in the evening, I was hungry and couldn't go to Singh. I could only order a fried rice with fresh orange juice and then fell asleep on the bed. At more than 7 o'clock the next morning, I checked out of all the hotel rooms and then took a taxi to the airport in a hurry. I boarded the plane at 9 o'clock and enjoyed a meal of Indian style curry chicken wings on the plane. It took more than 10 hours before I landed in Jaipur. More than 10 hours of exhausting travel is really uncomfortable, especially Lina's face was pale, as if she didn't rest well. They could only stay in the Jaipur hotel for one night. The next afternoon, they took the train back to Udaipur, known as the Venice of the East, and then took the bus back to Sinja town in the dusty smoke. It was already past 7 in the evening. Belsing was very silent along the way. He did not even answer the greetings of everyone. Instead, he took his wife Lina to the second floor work area of the building materials store with a serious face. Just after sitting down on the sofa, Belsing unbuttoned his vest and shouted loudly, "Where did Almasha, the damn culprit, go? Call him over. I want to ask him what he thinks." When the master got off the car, his face was as hen, and no one dared to touch the brows of Master Belsing. Standing there without saying a word, the old housekeeper was also very worried, but how could he not do it when the master ordered it? He came downstairs and shouted, "Damn Almasha, stop pretending to be dead and come up quickly. The master wants to ask you something, hurry up." Almasha took care of the victim Lamasuk in the hospital without sleep, and he was already exhausted. At this time, he was sleeping soundly in his room. The old man's roar startled him. After listening carefully, it turned out that it was his own master who came back. Although he was very afraid of what kind of punishment he would receive, he had to go, so he could only put on his clothes with his head held high. He trotted to the work area on the second floor. As soon as he entered the door, he saw the master's livid face and shuddered in his heart. Seeing that the culprit was still sleepy, Belsina was furious. "I came back from Malaysia in a dusty way, and I was exhausted. You, the culprit, dared to sleep soundly in the room. Are you the master, or am I the master? This master is almost driving you servants to wipe your ass. It's really unreasonable." Belsina became angrier and angrier. He jumped up from the sofa with a bang, and with one hand he waved to Elmisha to come to him with a smile, while with the other hand he untied the pure crocodile leather belt that Lisa bought for him. This action confused everyone. They didn't know what had stimulated the master of this house to untie his belt. But when the master called him, Elmisha didn't dare to resist, and could only walk over little by little. Then Belsing suddenly shouted with a smile, "Hurry up, kneel down for me." Elmisha trembled with fear, and quickly knelt in front of his master Singh. At this time, everyone knew why the master was untying his belt while talking. If you use the belt as a whip, you will be beaten violently regardless of your head or butt, and scolded while beating. You damned thing. Who told you to go out and do evil under the banner of the Singh family? Who told you to bully men and women? You are so old, but you still can't control your belt. I will beat you to death. If there is a first time, will there be a second and third time? From now on, are you the master, or am I the master? Do I have to solve your troubles and clean up your mess for the rest of your life? The belt in Belsing's hand was made of pure crocodile leather, and it was made of a 25-year-old adult crocodile. It was so strong. There were some leather protrusions on the front, and the clip on the belt was made of pure gold, which turned into a whip and whipped it without thinking. In a moment, there was a bloody wound. Master Singh was really angry and his attack was so cruel. He beat Elmisha, who had suffered since childhood, to the ground, holding his head and crying and begging for mercy. But seeing that Master Belsing's eyes were red, who dared to step forward to stop him? Whoever stepped forward would be beaten. In the end, everyone could only look for help to Mrs. Lina, who was sitting on the sofa in a daze. Let the lady do it alone, and only the lady could calm the anger of Master Singh. Of course, the master beat the servant to vent his anger, and no one cared. After beating for a long time, 20-year-old Elmisha was miserable, and his screams became smaller and smaller. A large pool of blood flowed from the cut on his body. At this time, the anger was almost vented. Lina stood up and grabbed one of Belsina's arms. Belsina was forced to press on the sofa, and then signaled the old housekeeper with his eyes to quickly pour a cup of hot tea to calm Master Belsina. He rushed back all the way and beat someone again without taking a break. Now it was thirsty, but I didn't expect that the old housekeeper would not forget Belsina's habit even in such a chaotic scene, and actually poured a cup of steaming hot black tea. The thirsty Belsina picked up the cup and poured it into his mouth. Then, with a groan, the cup fell to the ground and shattered. Singer fanned his tongue and screamed, "It's scalding me, it's scalding me, you bastards. You won't be satisfied unless you kill me. Can't you remind me that the water in the cup is boiling water? It's scalding me, it's scalding me. Bing bing, bring me some ice." The work area was in chaos, and everyone quickly opened the refrigerator to get ice cubes for Belsina to cool down. Taking advantage of the chaos, the store manager of the building materials store, Will, quickly took out a first aid kit from his desk and then dragged Elmisha, who was lying on the ground bleeding, to the wall. While helping him stop the bleeding, he quietly gave him advice. "Al, did you grow up with your grandfather? You were beaten because you were not ambitious and embarrassed the master. Only if you obey the master will he beat you personally. You will be fine if you admit your mistakes. Our master will not do anything to you, a loyal servant, because of a Shudra woman. Don't be afraid. I will admit my mistakes and forgive you." Although Masha was beaten with wounds all over his body and bleeding, he felt much more at ease in his heart, just as the manager of the building materials store, Will, said. "You can be beaten by a noble master, because you are his direct descendant, and he treats you as his own person. If you really want to deal with your master, why do you do it yourself? Just give an order and your legs and feet will be broken and thrown on the street to beg for food. It's easier than drinking water. You are saved. After all, he is your own master, and he still cares about his servants." Chapter 88, How to Solve It? Just marry the victim. There was a lot of chaos, especially Lina was so distressed that she cried. Belsina used ice to cool her down. But when he opened his mouth, he saw 2 big bubbles on his tongue, which showed that he was burned badly. He had a big tongue when he spoke, so he looked funny, but no one dared to laugh. Finally, he relieved his burned mouth. At this time, Belsina saw that Elmisha, who was seriously injured by him, had been treated simply. He actually knelt in front of him, and the 20-year-old boy couldn't stop crying. Although he didn't cry out, everyone could see that he was wronged. At the same time, Belsinger beat Almasha to vent his anger. As the saying goes, you can't execute your loyal servant just because of an outsider, a Shudra woman. Can you turn your elbow outward? Why is Singh so angry? That's because as a noble lord, he is not at the stage of bullying men and women. I haven't enjoyed the benefits of status, money, and position, but I didn't expect that you, a servant, would be the first to complete my ultimate dream. Who else should I beat if not you? I wanted to do something to bully men and women, but you did it first. Are you the master, or am I the master? I can just beat him up to vent my anger, but what else can I do? Will Almasha really die to apologize for his crime? Where will I put my face in that case? How dare I call myself the bully of Sinja Town? My people are my people after all, and only I can deal with them. No one can interfere. If anyone dares to interfere, I will chop off his claws. Belsinger is very protective of his people, and no one can bully my people. So seeing the crying Almasha, I sighed deeply again, thinking of Almasha, little Jamal, and the human mule Brook, who were children of the same age when they were young. The plot of jumping up and down and causing trouble in the Laga Valley made me feel very uncomfortable. I also hope that I, as a master, have neglected it. Almasha died when he was young. His parents were picked up and raised by his father. At the age of 20, he has not married yet and has no wife. Isn't this the responsibility of the master, or whose responsibility? It's not surprising that a 20-year-old boy with full blood and vigor does anything. When I'm free, I should care about the living conditions of the servants in the house. I should arrange a marriage for those who are not married and send the sick to a big hospital for good treatment. This is the only way to unite the entire Singh family. It is also the responsibility of the master, who cannot be shirked. So he sighed and kicked Almasha's shoulder, who was kneeling in front of him and crying, and scolded him with a smile. You are so old, crying and crying. How can you be so shameless? Take back your horse urine. Don't panic when you encounter problems. Just find a way to solve it. What's the big deal? After saying that, he turned around and asked Jamal, the butler, who was sweating profusely after pouring water on his master. Butler Jamal, during the 2 days I was on the road, did the victim's husband react? Jamal saw that, although the master had 2 blisters on his tongue and spoke with a little lisp, it was not too serious, so he put down his worries and said, Master, during the 2 days you were on the road, that Harsuk really made some moves. First, he ran to our building materials store and made a big fuss. He said that his wife and children were missing, and his wife embarrassed him. Why is the damn woman still alive? She must have been hidden by us. He asked us to hand over the person, and also asked us to pay a compensation of 1 million rupees, otherwise he would sue them in court. Oh, if the tiger doesn't show its power, do you all think I'm a sick cat? You are openly threatening a master of the Kshatriya caste. Are you blatantly extorting? 1 million rupees. Do you know how many lives 1 million rupees can buy? Is this Harsuk mentally ill, or is he looking for death to say this? If he is a normal person, he dares to threaten the Kshatriya master Belsinger like this. Who is the most ridiculous? Ignorant people are the most ridiculous. Do you really think that my character is made of mud? Well, I will let the people in Sinja Town see what kind of skills Belsinger, the landowner who came out of the Laga Valley, has. Let you see who should be offended and who should not be offended. Otherwise all the villains will talk about the Singh family. So Belsinger chuckled twice and said with bright eyes, this Harsuk really doesn't know how to live or die. He actually wants to sue a Kshatriya master. What is he suing me for? He sued me for human trafficking. His wife is still receiving treatment in the hospital. All the treatment and surgery fees are paid by me. Are you suing me for lax discipline, which led to the rape crime of the house slave? He dared to blackmail me for 1 million rupees. It's time to talk to him. Jamal, the old housekeeper, was stunned when he heard this and asked stupidly, Master, do you want to find this Harsuk to negotiate in person? This is too cheap. If I come forward for anything, you don't have to be so tired. I'm going to negotiate with him. Who is this Harsuk? Does he have so much power to let me come forward? Doesn't Harsuk want to solve it through the court? Then let's go to the court to sue and see who will go to jail in the end. So he said with a smile, "This Harsuk is clamoring to solve this matter through legal means, so let's go to court as he wishes. The Singh family will play with him to the end. Go to Jaipur and hire a good lawyer. I want to let those damn slaves in the whole town of Sinja see how powerful the Singh family is. I want to let him know who will end up in jail. In addition, Butler Jamal, you go to the hospital to visit the female victim in person. Try to make him and his husband Harsuk give up completely and stand on our side." The old butler felt a chill and numbness in his spine when he saw the smiling Bell Singh. The master is really scary when he gets angry, but I like it. The butler smiled and nodded. "Don't worry, sir. It's not about rape or not. It's just a love affair. Besides, Harsuk severely injured his wife because she cheated on him and extorted 1 million rupees from her lover. It has constituted the crime of fraud and intentional injury. As for how to deal with this mentally ill Harsuk, it depends on the sir's mood." The matter was settled, but the severely injured woman would definitely be divorced by her husband, and the children who fought with their father would also be kicked out of the house. How would the orphans and widows live then? At the same time, he thought of his own servant, Almasha, who was in his 20s and still not married, which was a little unreasonable. It just so happened that an abuser and a victim were born to be a pair, since the other party was a 30-year-old mother who had given birth to 4 children. There was no way to live with several children, so Almasha was punished for accepting such a woman. Although she was a little old, at worst, she could marry a few young wives in the future. She knew how to love people when she was old, right? Chapter 89, Harsuk's Lost Affair. Belsina felt particularly interesting when he thought that a victim and an abuser actually became husband and wife in the end. It was also a punishment for Almasha to be responsible for the victim. It would be nice if all rape criminal cases had such a happy ending. So when he looked at Almasha kneeling in front of him, he laughed foolishly, which made everyone laugh. I don't know what bad ideas Master Belsina has in mind. Is he still trying to punish Almasha? Just when everyone was uneasy, especially when Almasha, the person involved, was already trembling with fear, Belsina said, "If you do this, the injured woman will definitely be abandoned by her husband. What about the children? How to live?" It just so happens that Almasha doesn't have a wife yet, so the two of them can just make do with it. Although the woman is a little older, she is loving. At most, she can marry 2 young wives in a few years. You can get 4 children without much effort. This kind of good thing is hard to find in heaven or on earth. Ha. Master Singh's ideas are too jumpy. He talks about everything and no one can keep up with his pace. But you have to admit that Master Singh's arrangement is the best of both worlds. Especially the abuser Almasha actually got married in the end, and he also had 4 adopted sons and women, so his life was perfect. Just as my master said, since the 2 people are 10 years apart, women are older and more caring. It's not difficult to take care of people and marry a few young and beautiful wives to compensate for my losses. It's great that this matter was solved so cleverly that everyone had to give a thumbs up to their master. He is worthy of being a master, and he is capable. Almasha, who was kneeling on the ground waiting for punishment, heard that he had not been punished at all and had married a wife. He had 4 children, although they were not his own, but these children would still have their own personalities, and they were his own children both legally and in custom. Having a wife, children, a job, and a family is a perfect life. I didn't expect that I would have this blessing. Let Almasha see that his Master Singh is like a living bodhisattva. How kind and lovely. Finally, this tricky thing was solved. At this time, Lina could no longer bear the fatigue of the journey and yawned. Belsina had 2 blisters on his mouth due to the burns, which was very painful, but he could not bear the invasion of fatigue and his mood began to decline little by little. Infected by Lina, he also yawned and wiped his tears and said, "Let's stop here. The old housekeeper will be responsible for negotiating with this Harsuk. If he wants to sue, we will go. Isn't that extortion? I want him to lose everything. That's it. We are tired enough. Let's go back and rest." Seeing the 2 people's dusty appearance, everyone was very distressed, and at the same time, they were very angry with themselves. These servants were really bastards. let their masters solve everything for them. So what do? Seeing Belsina and Mrs. Lina panting and looking very tired, they sighed and sent the two people out the door. They walked back to the house across the street. As soon as they entered the house, the couple cheered. Then they took off their clothes and went to the bathroom. They took a hot bath and rubbed each other's backs for more than half an hour. Then they hugged each other sweetly and fell asleep on the bed, enjoying the coolness brought by the air conditioner. They slept until noon the next day. In the following days, Belsina and his wife Lina stayed in the house above the town and listened to the report of the old housekeeper. Since the Singh family was so famous in the town of Sinja, this matter was a hot topic and almost everyone knew about it. But what surprised everyone was that the Singh family actually took legal means to solve this problem. They didn't expect the victim, the woman who was seriously injured, to change her confession on the spot in court. It was not rape, but adultery. In addition, the lawyer hired at a high salary was powerful and eloquent. A rape case with solid facts was turned into adultery. Then he began to change the subject on behalf of the female victim and sued her husband for domestic violence and attempted murder with premeditated murder. Not only did he kill himself, but also 4 children. Wow, the whole plot was reversed at once. In addition, the Singh family used their connections in the town and bribed the entire court with a lot of money, so the verdict was made one day later. Harsuk attempted to murder his wife because he caught her having an affair with a man. Although no one was killed, it constituted the crime of intentional injury. The perpetrator Harsuk was sentenced to 2 years in prison. Don't think that's the end of it. Attempted murder. After the case was handled, the Singh family brought up to the court the fact that Harsuk extorted 1 million rupees from the Singh family. Good guy. The trial of the crime of intentional injury has just been completed, and another crime of extortion has been tried. After all, Harsuk came to Singh's building materials store and made a fuss. The neighbors around saw it. They also heard the other party's wild words of extorting 1 million rupees from the Singh family. After investigation, it was found that the extortion master was also planned by Harsuk's newly married concubine. Although the extortion was not successful, the crime was already obvious. At the end of the trial, not only was Harsuk sentenced, but even his newly married concubine was imprisoned. The defendant became the plaintiff, and the plaintiff became the defendant. But the matter was not over yet, and there was something new. One new thing was that Ramasuk sued her husband in court for domestic violence and threatened the personal safety of her and her 4 children. So the judge ruled that the two divorced and severed the father-son relationship with the 4 children. This matter almost set a precedent for the entire Sinja case. What precedent is that a woman sued her husband in court? Then the precedent of ruling a divorce, although it is now 2001 and entering the new century, the closed, backward, and even ignorant Sinja town court is like a decoration. There has never been a divorce case, and what is even more popular is that she sued her husband with someone else. Isn't this against the sky? Don't you think it will not cause a sensation? My goodness, this divorce case is like dropping an atomic bomb over the entire Sinja town, shocking everyone. But this is not the end. 2 days later, the news came out that the initiator of the divorce case in Sinja town actually announced his marriage. The person she married turned out to be the rapist, and of course her current lover, 20-year-old Al Musha. A second marriage should have been kept low-key, but the wealthy and powerful Singh family went against their norm and held a lively wedding. It seemed no different from a newlywed marriage. All the expenses of the wedding were borne by the Singh family, and the marriage certificate was obtained for the two. The children also changed their surnames, changing Suk to Musha, and to thank Master Singh for protecting their family. Singh was added in front of their surnames, which meant that from then on, the 6 members of their family became male and female servants of the Singh family. From then on, the Musha family was one of the important peripheral members of the Singh family. Chapter 90, Inspection of Health. My goodness, the originally peaceful town of Sinja was turned upside down by the entire Singh family, and heavy bombs were thrown out one after another without paying for their lives. Everyone was blown up and dizzy, and there was no peace for 10 days. The town affairs were done, but Ramamashal, who was originally charming and beautiful, was seriously injured, although she had the strong financial strength of the Singh family as a backing. A 10 cm long cut was opened on the forehead. Although it can be covered with hair or lesser, the forehead has been disfigured. This is not the most serious injury. The most painful injury is on the knee, because the two joints of the knee were also severely damaged due to the comminuted fracture. From then on, Ramamashal could only walk with one leg straight, whether he was writing or lying down. One leg is always straight and straight, which is considered a lifelong disability. Although it is a bit strange when walking, it is also very painful when it is cloudy and raining. But she saved her life and married a husband who was 10 years younger than her. As a servant of the Singh family, her salary was the best in the whole town of Sinjar. The children and herself lived a good life. At least they could send their 3 children, a little daughter and 2 little sons, to school in the town. This was something that I never dared to think about before. The poorer and more ignorant you are, the more you know about knowledge and change your destiny. Cultural knowledge is a lock. It can open the chains of poverty. So even though Ramamashal doesn't know a word, he knows the importance of going to school. The life that I never dared to think about before. Now I have done it one by one and there is nothing to complain about. So as time goes by, the two lovers who are 10 years apart, you really can't say that their relationship is getting better and better. A year later, she even gave birth to a big fat boy for Almisha. After half a month of hustle and bustle, everything was finally handled. Since there was a commotion, as time goes by, these big commotions made by the Singh family will slowly be forgotten by time. Singh's building materials business is very hot every day, and almost all the construction projects of the millions of residents around Sinjar town can be seen at a glance. The speed at which the monopoly industry makes money is so fast that it can be said to be making a fortune every day. Even the 50 tons of cement produced by Singh cement plant every day at full capacity is in short supply. While Bel Singh did not return to Laga village, Mabli Gaur, the 36-year-old cement plant manager, found Singh. Discuss whether to add 2 new fermentation tanks to the cement production plant, so that cement production can increase by 50%. The previous cement manufacturing reached 75 tons. After all, no one can bear to see the silver flowing away in vain, because the production progress cannot keep up. Bel Singh thought about this for a long time, and felt that increasing production and quickly dominating the market was what he should do most. So he nodded in agreement to add 2 cement fermentation tanks, but if it was imported from China, it seemed that it would be too late. Not only is the price of local production in India expensive, but the quality is not up to standard. In the end, there was no choice but to use the technology produced in Thailand, which is not cheap and fast to ship by sea. Only Mabrigale was personally responsible for this matter. After all, he was the manager and director of the cement factory. If he didn't go, who would go? Otherwise, the professional managers who were hired at a huge cost every year, and the profit share, would not be worthy of their wages, and would not be worthy of the trust that Master Bel Singh had placed in him. After dealing with all the trivial matters in Sinjar town, the young couple returned to Laga village slowly with large and small bags of spoils, and finally returned to their home. Just like a tired bird returning to its nest, after staying comfortably at home for several days, Bel Singh remembered how the requirements for sanitation in the entire Laga village that he had issued before leaving were progressing. This morning, Master Bel Singh put on a relatively refreshing white robe and held a bunch of sweet grapes in his hand. Following behind him were his two lackeys, Little Jamal and the human mule Brook, who staggered out of the castle and planned to check the sanitation conditions in the village. Originally, the human mule Brook wanted to fulfill his responsibilities as a human mule and carry Master Singh to inspect the sanitation conditions inside. But because of the hot weather and the fact that Singh has gained a lot of weight recently, it is still very stuffy to have human flesh next to each other, so it is better to walk briskly. In addition, it is also a good choice to exercise the body. The human mule Brook is now depressed and feels that his job is about to be lost. Bel Singh is more delicate and knows that the human mule Brook has been very irritable and worried these days. So while walking, he said to the human mule, Brook, with a smile, Brook, you are so old, and you are still worried about this and that. You are my most loyal subordinate. How can I forget you? I don't let you carry me because it's uncomfortable. When our family has a lot of assets, I will definitely buy a car. When the time comes, you can go and get a driver's license and act as a driver for me. Isn't that a disguised human mule? What are you worried about? From now on, your descendants will all be human mules of the Singer family. Are you satisfied now? Ha ha ha, look at your narrow-mindedness. Brooke was so moved that he almost burst into tears when he heard what Belsinger said. He wiped away his tears and calmed down his emotions and said with a smile, "Don't worry, Master, I will definitely drive well and won't let you have an accident." But as soon as he said this, Brooke wanted to slap himself a few times. He was really talking about something else. His master lost his parents when he was a few years old and he became an orphan because of a car accident. Why are you talking about car accidents? Isn't this asking for a beating? But Brooke carefully observed Master Belsinger's face and didn't see any anger, so he breathed a sigh of relief. In order to reduce his own problem of talking too much, it is better to keep his mouth shut. Every time he walked up and down the slope, he took the initiative to support the fat Master Singh. After all, it rained the day before yesterday, and the steep slope on the dirt road was very slippery. If he accidentally let Grandpa slip and dirty his white robe, it would be a sin. Master Belsinger had changed his soul a long time ago, just like an old bottle with a new one, and he didn't feel much about his parents' accidental death in a car accident. So he didn't care. He smiled and ate grapes while feeling inside the village. In order to set an example, the grape skins were placed in the hands of little Jamal. There was no random discarding on the roadside. When entering the village, there was no smell of that pungent smell. The streets in the village were cleaned. Idle women gathered in groups at the door to chat with each other. Although the children were still wearing ragged clothes, their chubby faces and smooth skin showed that they were living a good life. Their fathers or brothers worked in the two factories of their family, and the wages they earned were enough to improve the family's life. Everyone who saw Master Singh, whether adults or children, would bow and salute. The fear in their eyes was no longer the original emotion, but a grateful look, which made Singh feel very happy. Chapter 91. The Beast Came Down the Mountain. With money and no worries about food and drink, the mental state of the villagers has also improved greatly. However, after a long period of hardship, the dark-skinned women in the village will not dress up and buy new clothes like those women in the city. Instead, they choose to use the money earned by their husbands or eldest sons to buy some living facilities. The most obvious change is that in the past, when women fetched water, they would carry a pottery jar on their heads. It was very thin and fragile, but the advantage was that this kind of water jar was relatively cheap. But now, most women actually carry a pot made of red copper on their heads. Don't underestimate these copper jars. They are also one of the family's assets, hard currency. Whether it is passed on to future generations or counted as a dowry for their daughters, it is a very practical container. The biggest change is the hygiene of the people in the village. To be honest, in the past, these villagers, whether men or women, didn't like to take a bath, making their hair messy and hair lice crawling on it. Now it's much better. They pay attention to hygiene and don't urinate or defecate anywhere or litter. The streets in the center of the village, which used to be full of sewage and garbage, are now clean. Children run around on the streets without fear of falling and getting their mouths full of feces. The effect is quite good. Old Singh is also very satisfied. He greets the villagers with a smile and looks around. Let's see if there are any hidden sanitary blind spots in front of and behind the villagers' houses. There is a flat land after turning a corner through the street in the center of the village. A dry toilet with 10 squat toilets for men and women has been built on the construction site. There is a pipe under the toilet that leads directly to the underground biogas tank. Whether it is human and animal feces or sewage that is taken over for cleaning, when it is convenient, it will flow into the biogas tank along the pipe, and fermentation will form natural fertilizer. Belsing ignored Jamal's obstruction. I personally came to the men's toilet to see the sanitary conditions and was quite satisfied. The toilet is very clean. How many flies do we have? The only strange thing is that there is a red plastic bucket next to each squat toilet. There is an iron cylinder floating on the plastic bucket. It is obvious that clean water is needed for cleaning. This is also a habit that cannot be changed since ancient times. Instead of using toilet paper, clean water is used to clean after defecation. Not bad, it is quite clean. Behind the toilet is a garbage incineration plant, which is a circular pool made of bricks and cement. There is a roof made of asbestos tiles on it. The addition of a brick wall with holes is conducive to smoke exhaust and can also prevent garbage from burning in the pool on windy days. The burning debris will fly everywhere and cause a forest fire. There are not many ashes in the incineration pool. Every 1 or 2 months, a special person will take a silk bag to transport and seal the garbage and then transport it to Singer Town for disposal. As for where to throw it, it is not Singer's business. Anyway, it is not thrown in his own Lager Valley. Not bad, not bad, quite good. Since he has issued a very strict order, it has caused great distress and inconvenience to the villagers for a while. But rules are gradually developed. It's okay once you get used to it. Let's see if you are used to it after more than a month. Isn't the village cleaner now than before when sewage was everywhere and the stench was overwhelming? What is the difference between humans and animals? If you defecate and throw garbage everywhere, what is the difference between you and animals? Not bad, quite good. Seeing that the sanitation is implemented so thoroughly, Singh Sir was very happy and wondered in his heart whether the Singh family should organize a party for all villagers on January 26th. The National Day, to reward these law-abiding villagers. At least it would be a good choice to let these poor villagers, the elderly and children who don't see much meat in a year, eat a piece of fat and tender mutton. After a circle in the village, I felt very satisfied, and then I went down the dirt road below the village, little by little, to the agricultural areas on both sides of the river. I saw that various crops were planted in the farmland. Rice was planted in the irrigation areas on both sides of the river. The growth was very good. It would bloom and head in another month. If we take good care of it, it would be another bumper harvest. Because the rice is far away from the water source, dry fields are planted on both sides of the rice field, and the most is wheat. There is also some corn. Some grains are planted in some open spaces, such as rapeseed, soybeans, and various beans. As for the vegetables eaten by the villagers, they are all grown in their own courtyards. The vegetables produced in the courtyards of hundreds of square meters are enough for the whole family. The only drawback is that there are more weeds in these farmlands, which is also an inevitable result. Because Master Singh personally ordered that chemical herbicides will not be used, all the male laborers in the family went to work in the cement factory. It was good enough for the women and children at home to plant the land. As for pulling out the weeds in the land, don't even think about it. This is not an ordinary farm work. It is quite tiring and not something a woman can bear. After wandering around for an afternoon, Belsina returned to his castle very satisfied and sat on the high-end leather sofa in the living room to enjoy black tea and fruit. It was so comfortable to watch TV with his wife Lina. The couple chatted while watching TV. The content of the chat was to discuss what to eat tonight. After all, there was electricity and a refrigerator to store more food. After living in the sunny beach of Malaysia for more than 10 days, to be honest, I wanted delicious seafood, but I was called back by a phone call before I had enough. This made the honeymoon couple quite dissatisfied. Fortunately, they brought a lot of good things when they came back, and India is also a big seafood producer. Even if you live in the mountains, as long as you have money, you can buy whatever you want to eat. The couple discussed and planned to have a seafood hot pot tonight. It sounds good. It is actually a seafood hodgepodge with curry. Then wear gloves or bare hands to take out the shrimps and crabs in it and eat them. The taste is pretty good. It was already past 9 o'clock in the evening when they finished eating. The couple just wanted to take a shower and prepare to rest, but they didn't expect that the originally quiet back mountain would sound a burst of rapid gongs. Open the window and listen carefully. You can hear the sheepherder who is watching the sheep on the mountain shouting loudly, "Hurry up, the wild animals on the mountain are coming down. Hurry up, the wild animals are coming down." Women in the village, keep an eye on the children and don't come out. Men, take your weapons and hurry up to the mountain. This happens every half a month or a month. The goats I raise are for selling, not for feeding the wild animals on the mountain. Why do you always come down the mountain to harass me? Who can bear to lose hundreds of goats a year? This is all money. Belsina has never fought in his previous life for this life. He has no experience of facing wild animals. The only time he faced an attack by a wild animal, he was drowned. It seems that the rapid sound of the gong can indicate that there are more than one wild animals coming down from the mountain. This is not a pack of wolves coming down. If a pack of wolves comes, it will be really troublesome. I'm the master of the Laga Valley. If I don't lead the most dangerous time, who will lead? So I ignored Lina's dissuasion, put on my clothes, opened my door, and shouted downstairs. All the men who can move, come out with weapons, and follow me up the mountain. The wild beasts on the mountain are coming down. This time I will make them have a hard time. If I don't teach them a lesson, they will think that the Laga Valley is their granary. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 92. I'm not done with you beasts. Because there is a primeval forest behind the Laga Valley, and India has a large population. However, eating wild game is not a traditional menu for Indians, so the wildlife resources in India are well preserved. Although there is a small lake in the back mountain valley to block it, it can only prevent those wild animals that cannot swim from invading the village. But those jackals, tigers, and leopards who eat meat, which one can't swim. How can this small lake, as calm as a mirror, stop those greedy beasts from going down the mountain? Prey on those tender goats? It has become the norm in the Laga Valley. Every 10 days or so, there will be such a fierce gong and alarm sound, and the men, women, and children in the village are used to it. The wild beasts in the mountains will run for those goats and rarely break into the village. You have to close your door and properly place the children and the elderly in the house. The men will hold up their weapons and go up the mountain to fight with the wild beasts. Of course, it is a bit too much to say that they fight. It's just relying on the large number of people to make some noise and drive away the wild beasts that come down the mountain to hunt. So Master Belsina roared, and the men in the house ran out with flashlights and wooden sticks standing by the door while putting on their clothes. Especially the human mule. Brook was tall and strong and was the main force in the battle. His weapon was a machete more than 1 meter long, which was very fast. He was the main force responsible for protecting Master Persina. After putting on his clothes and comforting the irritated Lina, he hurried downstairs, but little Jamalti came over with a small 3-pronged steel fork. He hung the only flashlight in the house that was as bright as a searchlight around his neck and just walked out of the living room. He saw more than a dozen strong male servants standing in line. Everyone's morale was still high. As the leader and the commander-in-chief fighting the beast, Belsina had the obligation to cheer up his team and give a speech. So Belsina adjusted the searchlight on his neck with a big belly and walked around the front of Nanpu in the house twice before speaking with a sullen face. According to the statistics of the shepherds on the mountain in the second half of the year, as of January 1st, the wild beasts on the mountain have come down 15 times in the past 6 months. Each time, the number of goats killed exceeded 3. How many goats are there? The wild beasts on the mountain have regarded the goats that our Singh family has raised on the mountain as their own granary. They come down the mountain to hunt goats and harass us when they have nothing to do. How much money is lost from hundreds of sheep a year? This time, we must teach these shameless beasts a lesson. Beat them up and let them know that the Laga people are not easy to mess with. So this time, everyone should be spirited when they go up the mountain. The injured and the dead will be taken care of by the Singh family. Show me the courage to fight those damned beasts and both sides will suffer losses. Do you have the confidence? Good guy. Master Singh's long speech was indeed passionate, but fighting with wild beasts was really a bit unacceptable. It was not like this before. What is the madness of the master today? To fight with wild beasts and both sides will suffer losses. The master is a tiger, leopard, wolf, and bear who eats people. Can we not fight them head on? However, no one dared to say anything when seeing the extremely excited Singh master. We should act according to circumstances when we go up the mountain. Do you have confidence when hearing the master's howling question? Of course we have confidence, so everyone looked at each other and shouted with their necks stretched. We have confidence. We swear to follow the new master, to fight the beasts and fight them to a draw. Okay. This slogan is a bit unlucky. If we don't fight, we will both lose. It seems that the long-term harassment of the beasts on the mountain has made the entire Lager Valley accustomed to it. Seeing everyone's red faces and thick necks and high morale from shouting, the master nodded with satisfaction, then waved his hand, and took the lead in leading the team out of Sing Castle in an orderly manner. Then he climbed up little by little along the path behind the mountain, and on the way he gathered no more than 1/5 of the old and young men who stayed in the village. More of them came to the mountain with a flashlight in their hands. At this time, the shepherd who was guarding the sheep flocks saw the reinforcement and ran over excitedly to lead the way. When he saw Master Singh, he knew who was the commander-in-chief today. He said to Master Singh, while leading the way, "Master, you must be careful. There is more than one animal coming down the mountain today. Several dark figures seem to be wolves on the mountain. I heard that a huge leopard was seen on the other side of the river. If we encounter a leopard, we must not provoke it. Leopards are more difficult to deal with than tigers." What? A fat leopard came down the mountain. Hearing the shepherd's description of the leopard's size, Belsing became more and more excited. Great. Enemies are particularly jealous when they meet. You stayed in the forest and I couldn't do anything to you, but you actually swam across the small lake. You came to Mount Lager to hunt goats. I could still let you go. I can't find you yet, but you actually fell into the trap. Today it's either you or me. Why is Belsing so excited? That's because the kingdom was chased from behind by this leopard and then fell into the lake and drowned. This leopard was Belsing's enemy in his previous life, and even more so in this life. If they meet, it will be a situation of life and death. In the past, the leopard stayed in the mountains, and its whereabouts were secretive and could not be found. I didn't expect it to fall into the trap today. It's true that, if you don't take the road to heaven, you will find the door to hell. When they arrived at the riverside of the alpine pasture, Belsinger began to ask everyone to stop, and then asked everyone to turn on the flashlight at the same time, to illuminate the group of people. Seeing that these people, young and old, had real adult men, the number did not exceed a dozen. It was pure death for such a mob to fight with the leopard. You must know that the leopard is very agile, with sharp claws and strong power. It moves silently, and is a very difficult opponent. Fighting with such a small number of defeated soldiers and leopards, isn't that courting death? Fighting requires an elite force, not just winning with more people. After asking everyone to stop, Master Singh roared with a sullen face. You all heard what the shepherd said just now, right? We are about to face a leopard, and it is a very strong adult male leopard. It is so powerful, I believe everyone knows that this leopard is my enemy. Today, it is either it, or I, so I need a few people who are not afraid of death, to face the attack of this leopard with me. Who dares to go with me? Although these people are not well educated, they can still hear clearly what he said. They know that Master Singh is crazy today, and intends to fight the leopard. That is a real beast that eats people. Who dares to fight it? So everyone looks at me, and I look at you. Except for the dozen servants of the Singh family who stood up to support their master, no one in the village said anything. Although Belsing had never fought a war, he knew that there must be brave men under a heavy reward, and there is no problem that money can't solve. Seeing that everyone was not talking, he smiled and said, everyone who signs up will have a reward of 1,000 rupees, and the reward for the injured will be 10,000 rupees. The reward for the disabled is 100,000 rupees, and if the dead are awarded, the reward is 300,000 rupees. Who dares to go? Chapter 93, Dances with Wolves. There must be brave men under a big reward. This is universal in the world. No matter what race you are, or what country you are from, who doesn't love money? Compared with money, life is worthless. Which of these poor villagers doesn't desire wealth? Good guy. 300,000 rupees were exported. Everyone went crazy. They were quiet just now, but now they all signed up for this action. But although these people are very active, they are all old, weak, sick and disabled. There are not many real elites. These people will not be enough to cause trouble. So Master Singh carefully selected 5 stronger middle-aged men, and then everyone began to distribute weapons. Those villagers who couldn't face the beasts put all the weapons in their hands on the ground and let these 5 warriors carefully choose the ones that suited their hands. The weapons everyone took out were all kinds of things, including shovels, hoes, and some strange men came out with kitchen knives. This thing is short and light, and it is a good weapon for fighting, but it seems that these kitchen knives are of no use to fight with beasts. Long weapons are still useful, so shovels, hoes, and forks are the best equipment. This time it was a real battle. 80% of the servants of the Singh family were holding long sticks, which were also the best weapons to fight against wild beasts. There was no need to change weapons. The old, weak, and sick were left by the river. Bel Singh led people to the other side of the river under the personal protection of little Jamelin the human mule Brook. He found the shepherd hiding behind the rocks and personally led the way over a small hill. He heard the sheep calling mom, mom. Almost the entire sheepfold was overturned, and then Bel Singh, who had sensitive ears, heard the sound of the beast's claws scratching the wooden door of the sheepfold. Even the sensitive nose smelled the smell of blood. At this time, everyone was bent over and walked forward little by little, trying not to make any sound. Fortunately, these people were in the downwind and were not discovered by these wild beasts. When they came to the wall of the sheepfold, the human mule Brook with good eyesight gently looked at the door. With the help of the moonlight, a grey figure was seen, a bit like a sheepdog. Brook, who had lived in the mountains since childhood, knew that this was a nation wolf. Although it was not big, it was extremely ferocious, and the most terrifying thing about this thing was that it moved in groups. It was known that this Asian wolf must have other companions. Since we have encountered it, there is no need to say that the weapons are used to fight. When 2 people meet on a narrow road, the brave will win. How can a big man with almost 20 people be afraid of these Asian wolves? So Brook turned around and said softly, "Wolf, although we only saw one, the wolf pack must be not far away. Should we eliminate this group of wolves first and then look for that damned leopard? You can't get around it. Even if you don't want to attack these wolves, the wolves will attack you when they first see you, so both sides can't get around each other. If you can't get around it, then fight. What's there to be polite about? This group of wolves is the main force that comes down the mountain to harm the sheep. Out of 10 times, 8 times they come down the mountain to attack the sheep. This time they actually met. It's either you or me. Just practice your skills and courage before facing the leopard face to face. When the time comes, it will be these people who will die of cowardice. So it is inevitable to fight with the wolf first. Fighting is a matter of momentum, especially when facing wild beasts. So Bel Singh took the lead and stood up, put one hand on the big flashlight hanging around his neck, and held a 3-pronged fork in the other hand, and whispered to the crowd behind him. "Hear it, everyone. Take out all your courage. What is there to be afraid of facing these Asian wolves that are not much bigger than sheepdogs? Follow me." The good guy roared and rushed out, just in time to see that the Asian wolf that was prying through the door had already put its head into the sheepfold. The 2 sides were less than 5 meters apart, and the flashlight in Bel Singh's hand was quite powerful, so the entire area of dozens of meters was illuminated, watching the Asian wolf sticking its butt into the sheepfold. Just like meeting an enemy, he didn't even bother to say hello. He picked up the 3-pronged fork and stabbed the wolf's belly and hind legs. It was severely injured. The wolf howled miserably. It was indeed not covered that the howling of ghosts and wolves was particularly scary in this mountain. Their own master was so brave and so strong that he immediately beat an Asian wolf seriously. What was there to be afraid of? Who among them could be as delicate as Master Bel Singh? It was impossible to say that the long stick, shovel, hoe, and even Brook's machete were all used to greet the injured wolf stuck in the door. The Asian wolf living in India is not big in size and is even smaller than the German black shepherd dog. It looks like a larger local dog. It has a pointed mouth and a big tail behind it. In the forest, there are large beasts such as tigers, leopards, and black bears fighting for food. Even if the wolf packs gather together for warmth, their combat effectiveness is quite strong. But life in the forest these days is not so perfect. It is good enough to be skinny and not starve to death. It was able to withstand the beatings and heavy blows of more than a dozen people. Its spine was broken on the spot, and it died tragically at the door of the sheepfold. Its head was still stuck inside. It was a worthy death. The dying scream of this wolf was equivalent to a distress signal to the wolf pack. The howling of wolves sounded one after another not far away. Everyone turned on the flashlight and illuminated the entire area within 100 meters. Then they saw 4 or 5 pairs of green eyes approaching these people. The closer they got, the bloody smell could be smelled. When they walked into the range of the flashlight, they saw a total of 5 adult Asian wolves coming over. It was unknown whether there were any cubs following them. After all, it was risky for the wolf pack to go down the mountain to hunt. It was impossible to bring the wolf pack's cubs to face direct conflict with humans, so the 5 wolves were all adult Asian wolves. Although they were not big, they were still a piece of meat. So everyone formed a circle and surrounded Master Belsinger in the middle, holding weapons and confronting the 5 Asian wolves on the periphery. Due to the large number of people, the wolves did not attack rashly, but the crowd did not take the initiative to attack either. How long would the stalemate last? My mortal enemy, the leopard, has not appeared yet, so I don't have time to waste time with you guys. So Bell was very angry and kicked the human mule Brooke in the ass, cursing in circles. You bunch of rubbish. Only 5 larger wolfhounds can't make you so scared, and you must have fled when facing the leopard. What are you afraid of? There are many of us, so separate into groups of 3 and take the weapons in your hands and take the initiative to attack. I don't believe that 5 larger wolfhounds can still eat people. After saying that, he rushed out of the crowd with a bloody 3-pronged fork and directly faced the larger Asian wolf, howling and rushing over. Brooke, the human mule, and Jamal, the little one, were by his side. They were only 30 meters apart. Both sides knew that today would not end peacefully. Seeing the crowd attacking first, the wolves howled and rushed over. Under the dim moonlight, a war between humans and wolves began. Beasts were beasts, even if they were not as big as wolf dogs. They were still beasts. Asian wolves were also very fierce. In addition, the people brought by Belsinger were a little hesitant in their first fight with a beast, so the 2 sides fought evenly. Chapter 94. Fuck, super fat cat. Hit the head with a stick. Hit it hard. Hit it hard. I told you to bite me. Break your legs. Ouch. Singer master, help me, you biting, damn beast, let go of my feet. My goodness, the scene was so chaotic. 5 Asian wolves that were not even as big as local dogs made these dozen people busy, and one person was injured and bitten on the ankle. Fortunately, others rescued him in time and broke the upper forehead bone of the Asian wolf with a stick. After the most powerful weapon of the Asian wild wolf was destroyed, it became a puppy at the mercy of others. Then he was surrounded and beaten to death by several people. After all, humans are the spirits of all things, and their learning ability is unparalleled in the world. After getting over the initial panic, they fought these wild wolves very well. Several people cooperated with each other and covered each other. They held large wooden sticks more than 2 meters long in their hands. If they took turns, the wild wolves could not get close to their bodies at all. With the adrenaline rising sharply, a blow from the stick would break bones and tendons. How could these wolves' skinny bodies withstand such a heavy blow? 3 were killed within a few minutes, and the remaining 2 were also in danger. Belsinger seemed very excited. The losses caused by this pack of wolves exceeded tens of thousands of RMB every year. This money was enough to support more than a dozen families in India. Today, he finally got his revenge. He was holding a small 3-pronged fork. On the left was little Jamal holding a wooden stick. On the right was Brooke, a human mule holding a machete. The 3 of them grew up together and cooperated well. They attacked and defended well. They fought against this strong male wolf in a vivid and colorful way. After a few dozen seconds, the 3-pronged fork in Belsinger's hand nailed the male wolf's hind legs to the ground. After being injured, the male wolf became more ferocious and turned around to bite. At this time, little Jamal was quick-witted and swung a stick over and hit the wolf's open mouth, knocking it full of blood in the afternoon. The male wolf howled and lay on the ground. At this time, the human mule Brooke was so excited that his eyes were red. He raised the scimitar in his hands with both hands and shouted. He chopped it down with all his strength and beheaded it on the spot. The scene was very bloody, but everyone felt very excited, as if the hatred accumulated for many years was vented. The hatred that had been weighing on their heads for decades and hundreds of years was finally avenged. When the last wild wolf fell, the crowd couldn't help but cheer loudly. It was like winning a battle on the battlefield. The spirit and energy immediately became different. After all, these warriors who had seen blood and those who had not seen blood were in two different states. How could elite soldiers and ordinary warriors be the same? After seeing the last wild wolf fall, Belsina was also very excited and wiped the blood off his face. He quickly asked people to pull these wild wolves aside, to avoid getting in the way when fighting. If they fought with the leopards who were agile and invisible, it would be suicide to have such a stumbling block under their feet. After dragging all the wild wolves to the wall, everyone quieted down. Then, under the command of Belsina, they spread out in a fan shape. Looking forward, some large apple trees were planted at the foot of the mountain a few decades ago. Now each apple tree has a diameter of more than 1 meter and is more than 10 meters high. The varieties of these apples are really outdated. The fruits produced are not even as big as a fist, and they are sour and astringent that people can't eat them. However, these apples fall from the trees after they are ripe. They become a delicious meal for these sheep. This is why the goats raised by the Singh family taste so good. They can eat some apples every year to supplement various vitamins. It would be strange if the mutton is not delicious. However, these tall apple trees have become an obstacle for everyone. Leopards are experts in climbing trees. In particular, leopards will drag their prey to the trees after hunting and enjoy their prey quietly. If you want to find leopards in this alpine grassland, you must first find tall trees. These apple trees just meet these conditions. Search in the direction of the apple trees little by little. As he was walking, the shepherd who was following him suddenly ran a few steps and grabbed Belsina. When he saw his master turned around, the shepherd grinned and pointed at his feet in shock. Then he made a gesture to keep quiet. Belsina looked down and saw that the grass was all falling in one direction. Looking forward in this direction, it turned out to be a trace connected to the foot of the tallest apple tree deep in the apple forest, and there was some dry blood on the grass leaves. Finally found the clues, and finally found the traces of the leopard. At this time, Belsina gestured to let everyone gather around. Looking at the blood on the grass leaves, everyone understood that the battle was about to start, and everyone clenched the weapons in their hands. Then he crouched carefully and moved slowly, trying not to make any sound. As for the flashlight, he turned it off and searched forward by moonlight. More than 70 meters away was a tall apple tree with a diameter that 2 people could not hug. This was the king of apple trees. The fruits produced every year are the most numerous and the sweetest, so goats often live under this tree, so the smell of goats is the strongest. The leopard's nose is very sensitive. Since it has chosen to go down the mountain for a surprise attack, of course it has to choose a place with the most goats, and then kill a goat, and put it on the tree to slowly enjoy the delicious meal. Years of sneak attacks have made this leopard arrogant. This leopard does not think that humans have the courage to fight against it. As long as it can't find food in the mountains, it will go down the mountain to hunt goats. Every time it successfully eats and drinks enough, it will return to the forest at a walking pace. There has never been any danger or obstruction. So it swaggered and didn't hide its whereabouts at all. It hunted a black goat and feasted on the tree, not noticing any movement around it. A dozen meters away from the apple king tree, you can hear the crunching sound of bones and the unique wheeling sound of the leopards panting. By the moonlight, you can see a very strong male leopard enjoying a black goat on a thick branch. This leopard is so fat and strong that it is as big as a small Bengal tiger. And its open mouth is spewing hot air, and its thick paws are as big as a human head. If it paws down, it will not disembowel humans. But enemies are particularly jealous when they meet. Belsina remembers that this leopard is the culprit who drowned him, because the eyes of this leopard are actually red. This kind of red-eyed leopard is weird enough, so he will never make a mistake. The murderer is it. I finally found you. If I don't kill you, the murderer, and take revenge, it's like a big stone is always suppressed in my heart. Only by killing this leopard can I live happily in India. This is my obsession, and I have to face it directly. Only by bravely defeating it can I get a complete new life. Come on, old friend, we are mortal enemies in both the last life and this life. Either you turn me into leopard fesses, or I turn you into the cushion of a leopard skin chair. We are going to fight to the death, so there is no need to be polite. Chapter 95. Don't worry, I'm fine. Seeing this fat leopard enjoying his meal on the apple tree branch, he was as relaxed and casual as taking out a box of ice cream from his own refrigerator. This is to treat his own lager valley as his granary. Anyone who is hungry comes here to rob and kill. How can this be tolerated? I, Master Belsina, can't tolerate it. Finally, I found you, the culprit. In addition, this leopard is too conceited and doesn't care about the slightest disturbance around. At this time, Belsina's opportunity came. He squatted down with his men 10 meters away and whispered to everyone. The culprit who has been causing trouble in our lager valley for 7 or 8 years is enjoying the black goats on this apple tree. If we don't get rid of this leopard, we will never have peace. As the saying goes, the bravest wins when two meet in a narrow road. Everyone, show your courage. Just surround the apple tree with sticks and don't let the leopard escape. As for how to kill it, leave it to me. At this time, little Jamil scratched his chicken coop-like hair and asked in confusion, Master, what do you mean the bravest wins when two meet in a narrow road? Are you going to deal with this leopard yourself? Don't you know how high its combat effectiveness is? It's easy for all of us to suffer casualties when we go together. If you face this leopard by yourself, wouldn't that be suicide? If you die, what will we do? Damn, little Jamil is a famous crow's mouth. Can you expect me, your master, to be better? How come you say it's suicide? By then, I really don't know who will live and who will die. If I don't kill this leopard myself, I, your master, will not be able to live in peace. This is obsession. Do you understand obsession? Today, it's either it or I die. No one can stop me from taking revenge. So Belsina went up and slapped little Jamil in the face, scolding him with a mixture of laughter and tears. What are you thinking? Are you afraid of my death? Your master is the immortal god of war, and I want this leopard skin. You and Brooke will follow me in a while. The three of us will deal with it together, and the rest of you will form a siege circle to prevent this leopard from running away. As for the saying that the brave will win when they meet on a narrow road, you can think about it yourself. I don't have the time to explain these useless things to you. Anyway, show me all your courage. If anyone lets me down, I'll show you how I'll deal with you. Although little Jamil was slapped, he didn't care because he was used to being beaten by Belsina. If it weren't for his follower Singh, he was too lazy to fight. Now it's a critical moment. Facing the leopard without a gun at the moment of life and death is equivalent to fighting to the death. Even if you defeat this beast, it is estimated that both sides will suffer. So no one dared to be careless. If the master really caught a cold, they would not be able to survive. They would be like the unemployed vagrants in Sinja town, eating from one meal to the next, living in a place worse than pigs and dogs, and enduring the garbage as a bed. That is not a life for human beings. It is simply a living hell. So no one wants to lose their current happy life. There is no need to say anything. Everyone surrounded the apple tree little by little under the command of Belsina. Then every 2 meters, one person was temporarily holding a 2-meter long stick in his hand. Not to mention the leopard, even a mouse could not escape from this encirclement. Just when everyone was moving, they heard the roar of the leopard on the apple tree, but the leopard did not attack, but still lay on the branch to enjoy the delicious black goat. The leopard did not think that these people dared to harm him, but just wanted to drive him away. How could he leave in front of the delicious food? Anyway, these people did not dare to attack. So what? Eating is the most important thing for it. Good guy, this leopard is so conceited. Who will die if it doesn't die? After the encirclement was formed, Belsina brought his 2 most important men, who were willing to sacrifice their lives for him at any time. When they arrived under the apple tree, they gave an order, and more than 20 high-power flashlights were illuminated together, shining on the leopard on the tree, which immediately angered the male leopard, which was known as the overlord of the forest. With a roar, he stood up from the branch, and the fierce light revealed by a pair of scarlet glasses made several people feel that the leopard was in the stage of madness. He roared to the sky, and then came down from the tree bit by bit in anger. At this time, the 3 people who were directly facing the leopard would be a lie if they were not afraid. But it has come to this point, and it is a fight to the death. Fear is the most unacceptable In addition, the adrenaline surged, and the breathing was rapid, and the eyes slowly began to turn red. With a plop, the leopard jumped down from the tree, and stood a few meters away from the three people. The two sides confronted each other silently. Enemies are particularly jealous when they meet. In the last life, it was this leopard that took his life. Today, either you die or I live. Let's do it. With the flashlights shining brightly around, every movement could be seen clearly. Belsina grabbed the three-pronged fork with both hands, howled, and rushed up a few meters away. He arrived in the blink of an eye, but he didn't expect that the leopard's movements were as fast as lightning. The fork was sure to not hurt any part of the leopard. He twisted his body to avoid his attack, and waved his hand to grab his back with a claw. Belsina could even hear the sound of his back flesh tearing. Then he felt a sharp pain, and the leopard's strength was too strong. With one claw, Belsina fell to the ground. With a plop and a scream, Belsina was seriously injured and fell to the ground gasping for breath. The leopard had succeeded in one blow and planned to bite Belsina's neck with a fatal blow. But at this time, Jamal, who was holding a wooden stick, ran up with red eyes and howled, and swung the wooden stick in his hand and hit the leopard's head. Due to the tense situation, the leopard's aim was not accurate, and the leopard's ear tip was missed. Although it did not hit the target, it also scared the leopard so much that it broke into a sweat. This is a solid wooden stick. If it hits accurately, it will definitely break the head, right? So the leopard was forced to lower its head and change its idea of attacking Belsina's neck. It rolled on the spot to avoid the attack. At this time, the third wave of attacks, which is also the most deadly, was launched. Brook, the human mule, held a sharp machete in his hand and followed behind Jamal. Jamal missed the attack and the leopard dodged the attack. At this time, Brook, the human mule, rushed out from the side, grabbed the machete with both hands and raised it. With a roar, the leopard's chest was cut open and blood flowed. After saying so much, it actually took only a few seconds. The actions of both sides were very fast. At this time, Jamal quickly helped Belsina, who was lying on the ground and unable to move, and then the three of them supported each other and further confronted the leopard with flesh injuries. While panting, Belsina asked Jamal to check the severity of his back injury. Although there was some blood, it was only a superficial injury. He could go back for disinfection and continue fighting without stitches. However, the blow from the leopard card was too severe. His entire back was bruised. If it hit his head, it would have been smashed like a watermelon. Chapter 96, Avenged and Relieved. After taking a few breaths, Belsina knew that now was not the time to waste time. If the beast was allowed to recover its strength, the three of them would be in danger. So he pulled the arms of the two men with both hands, and the three of them looked at each other. After that, Belsina took the lead in attacking. This was also agreed in advance. This was his life and death feud, and it was his responsibility to fight the other party to the death. No one was allowed to take his position as the main attacker, so he rushed up again with a howl with the three-pronged fork. This time, Belsina learned a lesson and used the wooden stick behind the three-pronged fork to make a fake move. He poked at one of the leopard's eyes, and the leopard dodged it. The leopard probably didn't expect that this was a fake move by Belsina. Then he put the three-pronged fork on his waist, rotated it on the spot, and swept it across, and it was immediately caught on the paw that the leopard wanted to attack. The three-pronged fork was sharp, and it was used to plow the land in the central garden of Singer Castle. It was sharp after years of use. In one go, he cut the leopard's palm from the inside. The wound was so deep that the bone was visible. With a roar, one of the leopard's most powerful claws was disabled. But this attack was not over yet. Little Jamal, who was hiding behind Belsina, took a stick and tried to split Ocean, but he missed. But this time, he did not get a bite. Instead, he hit the leopard's shoulder blade, and with a click, the wooden stick, which was more than 10 centimeters thick, broke. The leopard screamed and fell to the ground. Because of the obstruction of flesh, it was unknown how the shoulder blade was injured, but the leopard collapsed to the ground, and it must have been comminuted. At this time, the most deadly attack was launched. The human bracelet behind the two people, Bouquet, held a machete, and did not shout like the two people in front. Instead, he silently gathered all his strength, and tried to fish for the moon from the bottom of the sea. With a creak, the leopard fell from the side of the head of the lying leopard to the stomach, and steaming blood gushed out more than a meter high. Almost the entire side of the leopard was cut open. Because of the ribs, the internal organs did not flow out. But the leopard had lost consciousness on half of its body, and it was impossible for it to stand up. They would kill you while you were sick. Whether it was a fight between wild animals or a war between humans, once they started fighting, it would be a fight to the death, and there was no mercy. Treating the enemy with mercy would be cruel to oneself, not to mention the hatred of killing for life, so there was no mercy. Belcina turned around twice in place and controlled his body shape, then erected the three-pronged fork in front of him. The leopard's back was stabbed down, and it only heard a scream. This time, the leopard lost its fighting power. The spine below the waist was seriously injured, and it could not move at all. And this time it was really cruel, nailing the leopard to the ground. The leopard, the overlord of the forest, was as fat as a tiger. Finally, it lost its fighting power and lay on the ground, gasping for breath. The only remaining red eyeball rolled around, as if it had some bad ideas. But with the hindquarters paralyzed, even if the leopard was more agile, it would not be possible for it to run away with its two hind legs. Death was only a matter of time. At this time, the human mule Brook and Jamal seemed to have agreed on it, and handed the machete in their hands to their new master. Then, one person controlled one of the leopard's paws and pressed it to the ground. At this time, Belcina wiped the blood off his face with the machete and smiled ferociously. Then he sat hard on the leopard's torso pressed on the ground, grabbed the leopard's severely injured eye socket with one hand, and then handed the machete in his hand to the leopard's neck and shin, and then gently pulled it. A stream of bloody red blood gushed out, splashing Belcina with blood, but Belcina didn't care. The comfortable feeling of revenge made Belcina feel like he was taking drugs. The stone in his heart suddenly disappeared, as if he had lost 20 pounds of weight, and he was floating even when walking. He licked the blood from the corner of his mouth with a knife, then howled to the sky. Ha 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 ha. Belcina started to cry while laughing. Everyone didn't understand what was wrong with the master, but no one dared to disturb Belcina. Everyone knew that he was venting his emotions, and he was also venting the emotions that had been suppressed in his heart for a long time. Although everyone couldn't figure out what kind of hatred between Master Belcina and this leopard that he had never seen before could be suppressed like this, it was terrifying to vent it out. After laughing and crying for more than 10 minutes, Belcina finally returned to normal. He wiped his face and stood up little by little with the help of others, then kicked the leopard that had been dead for a long time with his foot, and said to the human mule Brook with a smile, "Brook, you are strong. Carry this leopard for me and take it home. Then peel its skin and turn it into a cushion for the chair behind my desk so that I can relieve my hatred." Brook was honest and sometimes spoke without thinking. He squatted on the ground and fiddled with the leopard, which was like a Bengal tiger. "Master, are you confused because of your serious injury? The skin of this leopard has been cut into pieces by us. What do you want with it? If you really like these large carnivorous beasts, we can go to the forest behind to hunt a Bengal tiger one day, which is much better than this tattered leopard skin." The words were so harsh that Belcina rolled his eyes in anger. He ignored everyone's obstruction and kicked and cursed. "You idiot, are you questioning my decision? You know this leopard has a special meaning to me. It's not about how good it looks. Even if there is only a piece of skin as big as my palm left, I will take it back. Hunting, hunting, I'll beat you. Hurry up and carry it on my back. If there is any mistake, I will punish you." Although the human mule Brook was kicked a few times, but feeling the strength of the master's kick, Brook knew that the master's injury looked quite serious. In fact, this was just an appearance, and there was no injury to the bones or internal organs, so he didn't care, and got up from the ground with a smile. He grabbed the forelegs of the leopard with both hands and shouted loudly, and carried the leopard weighing hundreds of kilograms on his shoulders. Such an easy lift made everyone feel that the human mule Brook was really a human crane. Wow, this guy's strength is too abnormal. Because his back was bruised, his ribs hurt when he walked, and he had no choice but to let Jamal carry him. Then he led his men to take the bodies of the other 6 wolves and walk down the hillside along the path, talking and laughing. When everyone returned to the brightly lit Singer castle, there attracted a scream from the women. These people were basically covered in blood and blood gourds. It would be strange if they did not scream when they suddenly appeared in front of these women. Lina, who had been worried for more than an hour, ran out with the help of the maid. Seeing Belsinger being carried by little Jamal and covered in blood, she fainted with a cry. Good guy. There was another round of chaos, and Lina was finally rescued. Lina, who had just opened her eyes, saw her husband who had been washed clean. He appeared in front of her intact, not dead, as if my mind was a little confused, and asked in confusion. Brother Bell, was I dazzled just now? Why did I see you covered in blood? Are you injured? Let me take a look. You are really careless about your body. How can you participate in such a dangerous hunting operation? If you have any accidents, our family will really collapse. Chapter 97. Can't stay idle even when recovering from injury. Just assume that the little girl's eyes are blurry. If she recalls the appearance of her blood good again, she will be scared. So she said with a smile. You have a visual illusion. You mistook the leopard on Brooke's back for me. Your eyesight is really bad. How can a human and a leopard be the same? You actually mistook it and frightened yourself. Little girl, you really scared me to death. Don't do this again in the future. The little girl button rolled her big eyes and recalled. She was confused for a while. She looked so cute and silly, very funny. If there were not so many people now, Belsina really wanted to give a French kiss. The little girl was even more dizzy. That would be interesting. The little girl finally woke up. Then Belsina asked the maid to help the lady back to the room to rest, and then he directed people to hand these beasts over to the butcher, who specializes in slaughtering and skinning animals. Then he ran to the study and asked little Jamal to disinfect the wounds on his body caused by the leopard. As for the bruise in the shape of a leopard's palm, it can only get better slowly over time. It would be nice to have a bottle of safflower oil, but India really doesn't have this stuff. After cleaning up his wound, Belsina returned to the room, wearing pajamas and hugging Lina, fell on the bed while talking about Zen love, and fell asleep little by little. The next morning at breakfast, little Jamal reported that all the leather that had been stripped off had been sent to the town of Sincha for processing. It would take a few days to come back, whether it was made into leather shoes or chair pads. Belsina ate with a grin while listening to little Jamal's report, and then nodded with satisfaction. Then, with the help of little Jamal, he stood up from the chair, breathed a sigh of relief, stretched his old waist, and said with a smile, my goodness, this leopard is really strong. It almost knocked me out with one claw. Fortunately, my bones are hard enough, and I didn't suffer any internal injuries, but I have a lot of bruises. If I make any big movements, I can feel the pain in my back. It's really unbearable. Little Jamal wanted to laugh, but didn't dare to say, Master, last night was really dangerous. Why did you care so much about that leopard? With our family's power, you can buy anything you want. Why did you work so hard? It was really dangerous. Don't do such stupid things in the future. Belsina glared at him and cursed in his heart. What do you know, you idiot? I was chased into the lake and drowned by this leopard in my previous life. If I don't take his life, how can I live well in this world? Seeing that his master was angry, little Jamal didn't dare to ask and helped his master to the living room and poured him a cup of black tea. Belsing stood behind the master and waited for Master Singh. He drank a sip of black tea and suddenly remembered something. When he went down the mountain yesterday, because Jamal had never played the important role of a human mule, he almost tripped over the weeds. He almost fell down the mountain, and if he didn't die, he would be seriously injured. The back mountain was overgrown with weeds, and those fruit trees were crooked and inferior. It was time to clean them up. Anyway, he couldn't do other work these 2 days, but he could command the dozen servants at home. He organized the remaining strong laborers in the village, took machetes and saws to the mountain, and cut down all the inferior fruit trees that had been planted on the mountain for decades. Clear all the weeds and shrubs, then dig tree pits and buy saplings, and try to plant some new varieties of fruit trees before the rainy season. The fruits of these new varieties of fruit trees are the most delicious. Anyway, there is nothing to do today, so he gave the order and officially started work tomorrow morning. So he put down the teacup and pointed to the sofa beside him, asking little Jamal to sit down before he said, "Jamal, you almost tripped on the mountain when you carried me back last night. You haven't forgotten this, have you?" The master's thoughts were really jumping around, and no one could keep up with him. We could only answer whatever he asked. In addition, it was too dangerous last night. The weeds almost tripped me. In addition, if I fell from the mountain with the master on my back, I would be seriously injured if I didn't die. The Queen Mother was very scared and said excitedly, "Master, why don't you remember? I almost had a heart attack at that time. The slope of the back mountain is 30 degrees, which is not very steep, but there are some stones and wooden stakes on the slope. If you really fall down, you will die. It's time to clean up." Oh, it's not simple. Before I said what I thought, little Jamal had already thought of the need to clean up the weeds and shrubs in the orchard on the back mountain. The one who thinks far enough is a material for being a housekeeper. Does the Jamal family have the gene to be a housekeeper? Why are every generation such excellent housekeepers? Rare talents are worth cultivating. Belsina nodded in approval and said with a smile, "Yes, your idea coincides with mine. The purpose of talking to you today is to organize people. Go to the orchard on the back mountain to tidy it up and cut down all the inferior fruit trees planted decades ago. To be honest, although the fruits on the fruit trees taste good, only half of the fruits are edible, and the other half are sour and astringent. It's a waste of land. In addition, there are weeds and shrubs everywhere, and there are many stones on the mountain. It's a pure waste of land if it continues like this." At this time, little Jamal's eyes lit up and asked with a smile, "I understand. Now I will organize our family's manpower to go up the mountain to clean up the orchard. Just wait and see. I will definitely do this beautifully. What can a dozen people in the family do? There are too few people, and the orchard on the back mountain reaches hundreds of acres. The fruit trees are sparsely planted, but there are too many weeds, shrubs and stones. Can they be cleaned up with fewer people?" Another thing that cannot be ignored is that the fruit trees on the back mountain are very old, and the fruits they produce are small and not delicious. But you have to admit that some fruit trees are indeed fine products, such as the 2 durian trees. Each durian tree can produce dozens of fruits every year. It is enough to eat for several months, and the variety is still a very old small durian. The taste is so strong that it stinks 40 kilometers away against the wind. It is very rare these days, and can be said to be a treasure. If it is cut down, I will have to wait for several years before I can eat durian. And can those stupid durians taste as good as these small durians? Seeing little Jamal, I only heard the first half of the sentence, but not the second half. His impetuous temper is really unacceptable. So he swallowed the teacup in his hand angrily, which made a bang, attracting the attention of little Jamal, and then he scolded, "When will you change your impatient temper? Can you listen to me before you express your opinion? Learn from your grandfather and be more stable." Although 90% of the fruit trees in the orchard in the back mountain are of low quality, but there are good ones too. If you dare to cut down those 2 durian trees that are over 50 years old, I will chop off your head. Do you understand? You should listen to the whole sentence, not just the first sentence, and not the second sentence. Chapter 98, Such a Thick Wild Grape. Little Jamal was scolded, but he was used to being scolded by his master, so he didn't feel embarrassed. He just scratched his hair and giggled. Belsina had no way to deal with him. He calmed down and said again, "It is your job to organize people, but can a dozen male servants in our family clean up hundreds of acres of orchards? It is the slack season now, and the strong laborers in the village, who don't work in our factory, have nothing to do all day and sleep in the house. They are too lazy. Give them 50 rupees a day to organize them to work in the orchard in the back mountain, and they can also earn a little money. Our workload will be completed very quickly, so it is impossible to organize people in one day. Now you go and do what I say." After getting permission from his master, little Jamal stood up with a smile, said goodbye to his master, and ran out in a hurry. He went back to his room to find the electronic loudspeaker that his grandfather used to issue orders, and then went to the village and shouted with the electronic loudspeaker, "Hey, strong laborers in the village, please pay attention. Our master Singh is really dissatisfied with the dirty environment of the orchard on the back hill. We are going to organize people to clean up the orchard on the back hill. The daily wage for each adult strong laborer is 50 rupees. Please sign up as soon as possible. There is no upper limit on the number of people. Anyone can participate. When the old and young men who were sleeping in the house heard this, it was like hearing a call. They put on their clothes and ran out in a hurry and then surrounded little Jamal and asked all kinds of details. Little Jamal was very smart, although he was impatient. But he considered things carefully. Seeing the crowd of more than 30 people, he found a cool place to squat and said, "Here's what happened. Yesterday I carried the master down the mountain and almost tripped. Everyone who goes up the mountain to hunt wild animals knows this. So today the master plans to clean up the orchard on the back mountain and cut down all the old fruit trees. Clear the weeds and bushes. Those stones will be useful in the future. Every strong laborer can participate in this activity. There is a salary of 50 rupees a day. Although it is not much, it is also an extra income. Another and most important point is that people who go up the mountain to work must bring their own tools, machetes, axes, and iron saws, because there are too many people. The Singh family does not have so many tools to give you, so you have to bring your own. Whoever participates in this labor will gather at the gate of the castle tomorrow morning and wait for notification. You know it all. Simple and clear. Bringing your own tools to the mountain to cut down trees and weed with a daily salary of 50 rupees is also an opportunity to make extra money. Anyway, you can do it when you are free. You can earn 500 rupees in 10 days, which can buy a lot of things for your family. In addition, the area of the orchard on the back mountain reaches hundreds of acres. This is not a secret that everyone knows. The main thing is to clean up the cleanup. It takes 2 months. This is a good deal. Who wouldn't be tempted? So after Mr. Jamal finished the notice, these idle old and young men return home and began to look for things in the boxes. Living in this small mountain village, axes, iron saws for felling trees, machetes and hoes. These are all necessary tools for life. Who doesn't have them? It's not difficult to prepare tools, but these tools are more troublesome to maintain. Some iron saws are rusted, and some axes are curled. They need to be sorted out before they can be used. At more than 7 o'clock the next morning, these lazy people who usually don't sleep until 12 o'clock and don't get up had a good breakfast early. Bring the kettle at home and some dry food, most of which are pancakes, rolled with some vegetable salads, which are delicious and filling. Then take the tools and come to the door of the Singh family castle together. One by one find some cool places to squat or sit on the ground waiting to start work. Today, Master Singh got up very early. Of course, it was the first time he got up so early, and he would definitely breathe heavily and reluctantly eat a little breakfast. Then, despite Lina's obstruction, he asked the mule Brook and Jamal to prepare the sedan chair and lead people up the mountain to tidy up the orchard. But Lina didn't expect that she couldn't stop Belsina from leading the team to work, but she followed him up the mountain with several strong male servants carrying things. The maids followed behind with various wooden boxes, and more than 40 adult men over 15 years old went up the mountain in a mighty manner. When they arrived at the orchard on the back mountain, they cleared a flat land at the foot of the mountain, and then Lina directed the male servants to build the pergola. Then they put the bamboo lounge chair and the bamboo coffee table under the pergola. The maids still opened the boxes in their hands and took out various kinds of tea. There were also silver pots and silver basins for washing hands. Just like an outing, Belsina's resting place was decorated very luxuriously and practically. Of course, the work had to be done bit by bit, starting from the foot of the mountain. Little Jamal led the team to knock down the fruit trees that were aging and produced sour fruits one by one. Clean up all the leaves. As for the unripe fruits on the trees, the Singh family would not want them. But the villagers did not care to collect these unripe fruits and carefully pulled the real grass to cover them and prepare to take them home to their families to taste them at night. In the past, even if there were ripe fruits on the mountain and fell on the ground, the villagers would eat them. So it was quite difficult for the villagers to eat some fresh fruits. All the branches and leaves on the felled trees were cut off, and the branches thicker than fingers were collected and exposed to the sun. After drying, these branches would be cut into sections and bundled in the wood. These branches are all good fruit woods, which are perfect for barbecue. It is too wasteful to throw them on the mountain and let them rot. As the saying goes, there is strength in numbers. In one morning, 30 fruit trees were knocked down and all cleaned up. As for the roots growing in the soil, they needed to rot little by little and then be dug out. This is how the morning was spent. At noon, the villagers ate the food they brought and drank some clean water. Master Belsina and Mrs. Lina sat under the pergola and washed their hands with a silver kettle. Then the kitchen maid would bring up the prepared food bit by bit, and they would continue to work in the afternoon, after eating and drinking. It was so comfortable to lie in the pergola for a long time, enjoying fresh fruits or tea. After sleeping for a whole morning, Belsina was refreshed and could no longer lie down. He planned to get up and stretch his muscles, accompanied by the human mule Brook, wandering around in the orchard at the foot of the mountain, and then select some fruit trees that can be left and mark them. Just after turning the foot of a mountain, I didn't expect to see a small valley, and the cliffs were covered with green vines. And these grapevines are more than 10 centimeters thick, and it seems that they have grown here for some years. The grapes on these grapes are densely packed, but these grapes are very small and dark purple. This is the best raw material for making wine. Wild mountain grapes did not expect to grow so many in this valley. There are hundreds of them, and the number of densely packed grape bunches on them is countless. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 99, All in Order. Oh, how come there are so many wild grapes in this valley? Standing at the foot of these wild grapes, Belsina carefully searched his memory. He had never seen wild grapes since he was a child. Have you ever eaten wild grapes? Are these wild grapes all wild? Maybe he is too young and has forgotten some things. So he quickly took out the mobile phone in his pocket and called the old housekeeper who was far away in Sinja town to deal with the extortion case in court. Fortunately, the signal transmission tower that he bought at a high price finally came in handy. He could also make calls in the mountains. The old housekeeper picked up the phone after a few beeps. Master, is there something you want to call me for? Belsina looked at the hundreds of wild grapes that almost climbed to the top of the mountain and asked blankly. Housekeeper Jamal, you are a living fossil in our family. I want to ask you, have you heard that some wild grapes are artificially planted in the back mountain? Jamal was stunned when he heard this, then thought carefully and shook his head to confirm. Master, the orchard on the back mountain has been managed by your great-great-grandfather, great-grandfather, and grandfather for hundreds of years. Many fruits are planted, but most of them are common fruits. I don't think I have heard of wild grapes being planted since I can remember. Have you discovered that there are wild grapes growing on the back mountain? Are there any more? The wild grapevines in front of him are almost as big as a small grape estate, with hundreds of them densely climbing on the mountain. The grapes are all red and purple, and the number of grape bunches is countless. If they are not harvested in a few days, these grapes will rot, or they will be eaten by some wild beasts and birds, and wasted in vain. It seems that this piece of wild grapes is purely wild. It is also possible that a bird ate wild grapes somewhere else, and came to the Raga Valley to rest and defecate here. The undigested grape seeds took root and developed little by little to the current scale. The old butler would not lie to himself. The old butler said he didn't know, so it must be wild. So Belsina was so excited that his face flushed and he laughed. My old housekeeper, aren't there wild grapes growing in the back hills? They grow in patches, and these are all wild grapes. Look at the diameter of those vines. They must be at least 40 or 50 years old, and the bunches of wild grapes they produce are simply countless. Now 95% are ripe, and you must know what this means. Ha 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 ha, I'm so lucky. Oh, it's incredible. It's a rare and lucky thing to be able to find such a large population of wild grapes. Although India is not a major wine producing area, Indians rarely drink wine. But some people in India know that wine is a good thing, but it's expensive and rarely drunk. All grapes in the world are domesticated from wild grapes, and the grapes used to make wine are the closest relatives of wild grapes. Therefore, the grapes used for winner making are very small and taste sour and astringent. Wild grapes also have this characteristic, sour and astringent. It doesn't taste good at all, but it is a very top level winner making raw material, and it is in the wild grape red wine. The nutritional element are several times more than those of the red wines brewed by those red wine wineries, and they are more durable in cellaring. The longer they are stored, the better they taste. There are so many hundreds of wild mountain grapes. The mountain grapes produced at such an old age must be of the best quality. How many wines can be brewed from countless grape bunches? With these hundreds of wild mountain grapes, wine can be brewed every year, endlessly. When the time comes, these mountain wines that have been stored in the cellar for more than 10 years will definitely be the most overbearing in terms of nutritional content and taste. Lucky, today is really too lucky. The old housekeeper also smiled happily for his grandfather. Then I understand. Master, you call me and ask if you need a set of equipment to measure the wine. Ha, I'll do it right away. You have to give me a quantity level. How much is the output of these mountain grapes, and how big a machine should I buy? Belsina took the phone and walked around the valley where the mountain grapes grew twice and carefully estimated that there were hundreds of mountain grapes. The farthest tree trunks on the mountain are over 20 meters long and are densely packed with grape bunches. Although these grapes are small, there are too many of them. After careful estimation, the weight of each grape tree is tens of kilograms, which means a yield of thousands of kilograms. Excluding some crooked, cracked, rotten green grapes, the total yield will be around 1000 kilograms, which only requires a small set of winner making equipment. However, the number of oak barrels used for wine aging must be sufficient. After all, winner making machinery only turns these grapes into grape juice, which is then filtered and placed in oak barrels for fermentation and aging. It only plays a role of crushing and filtering, and the oak barrel is the real soul. Then he said excitedly, there is a production of about 1000 kilograms of wild grapes, and a small winner making equipment will be enough. But the oak barrels for aging must be purchased from Bordeaux, France. It doesn't matter if they are a little expensive, the quality must be good, and the quantity must be very large. Choose the most accurate 225 liter and 30 liter oak barrels. My master needs perfection in everything he does. Even brewing some wild mountain wines actually requires custom-made imported oak barrels from France. How much does that cost? The old butler could only agree and inquire through various channels. The price of these oak barrels will be reported to his master, and the number of oak barrels to be purchased. After the call ended, Belsina jumped up and down excitedly, as if he had seen a mountain of gold, and the bruises on his back were pulled, and he grimaced in pain. At this time, he ordered the human flesh rose Brooke, who followed him, pointing to the yellowing wild mountain grapes, and said, Brooke, I have a task for you. Just keep an eye on this kernel. Don't let me destroy the wild mountain grapevines in it. After collecting these wild mountain grapes, protect them well, so that new grapes will be picked every year. You can make new wine, and then there will be fine wine. As for grapes, it seems that everyone knows them. Although wild grapes are very small, they are the same as grapes. More than half of the gardens in Belsina Castle are planted with various grapes. The maturity is different, but the taste of each kind of grape is very sweet. It can be used for a year, so Brooke is not unfamiliar with grapes. My master ordered it, so how can I be careless? I quickly nodded and agreed, patting my chest, and said, Master, don't worry, I will be responsible for the safety of these vines, and will never let anyone destroy the grapes. But can you give me some of the wine you make? He is addicted to alcohol at a young age. There will be talk in the future. After 1000 kilograms of grapes are crushed and filtered, about 600 kilograms of grape liquid can be left. Plus the evaporation of the 3-year aging, there should be at least 500 kilograms of red wine left. That is almost 1000 bottles of wine that cannot be drunk, so there is no problem in giving some to his subordinates. Chapter 100. There is a snake. Belsina smiled and kicked the human mule Brooke and cursed. There's no wine yet, and you're thinking about drinking it. Aren't you too advanced? I'm telling you, if there's any problem with these vines, I'll ask you to do it. If you protect them well, you'll get a reward. If they are destroyed by those little brats in the village, I'll show you how I'll deal with you. Although the human mule Brooke was kicked, He rubbed his butt and kept grinning. Brook knew that Master Belsina would beat you because he treated you as his own. If he doesn't beat you, then you can only wish you good luck because the master doesn't treat you as his own. Brook patted his chest and said as if his master Belsina had promised. Don't worry, master. I will organize people to fence off this small valley tomorrow. Although most of the children in the village are illiterate, they will know that these wild grapes are protected when they see the fence. This is master's fruit forest. How dare they destroy it? Belsina felt that it was not safe yet and shook his head and said, this is not enough. We must gather all the people in the village and tell them that these wild grapes are species that master needs to protect. If anyone dares to destroy these wild grapes, I will not beat him or scold him. Let their whole family get out of the Laga Valley. Brook, the human mule, shrank his neck in fear and muttered in his heart, Master, your punishment is really severe. It would be better to beat them and scold them. If they are driven out of the Laga Valley, where will you let these Shudra slaves survive? Although Brook thought about it, he didn't dare to say so and could only nod his head repeatedly, planning to go back to the village with these people after get off work to announce the protection of wild grapes. Belsina looked at these purple wild grapes, salivating, and picked one and put it in his mouth. Good guy Belsina's face immediately wrinkled into a bun. Sour, too sour and a little bitter. But if you taste it carefully, there is a hint of sweetness after the sourness. This is the characteristic of wild grapes. It is really not delicious, but it is the top raw material for making wine. Seeing that Master Singh ate a sour grape and seemed to be very intoxicated, Brook felt very curious about what these wild grapes, which were only as big as a fingernail, tasted. So he came to the wild grape tree carelessly and saw that the master was not paying attention, so he secretly picked one, put it in his mouth, and licked it with his tongue. Good guy. Tears of sourness almost fell. Because he was eating secretly, Brook didn't dare to show any expression, but just coughed to cover up his embarrassment. He thought he was hiding it well, but in fact, Belsina had seen Brook eating wild grapes secretly. In order to teach Brook a lesson, Belsina did not say anything. Seeing Brook coughing, he smiled and said, how is it? Is it not delicious? Wild grapes taste like this. They are sour and astringent, but with a little sweetness. This is the best grape for making wine, and the wine made from them will taste good. I thought I would be punished when I was caught eating by the master, but I didn't expect that Master Singh would explain to me why wild grapes are so sour. Brook kept laughing. At this time, Belsina clapped his hands and greeted Brook. Let's go. Today's harvest of wild grapes is already good. Let's go back now and see how those people are working. Are they lazy? Brook originally wanted to carry the master back, but Belsina refused. He had eaten and drank well these days and gained several pounds of weight. Now is the dry season and the climate is cool. If it is the rainy season, it will be very hot and humid, with heavy rain for 3 days, light rain for 2 days, and drizzle every day. At that time, the obese body will bring a great burden to oneself. Sitting there without moving is like being in a sauna. Who can bear it? So Belsina said he would exercise more to lose weight and planned to walk back by himself, but Belsina walked very slowly. The forest was full of shrubs, weeds, stones, and tall fruit trees. It took him more than 10 minutes to walk halfway, but he could vaguely hear the noisy scene of people working. After walking for more than 10 minutes, the fat boy Belsina was already exhausted and panting. Just after climbing over a big rock that weighed several tons, he heard a burst of exclamations from the construction site, where dozens of people were working. Belsina didn't hear the first 2 shouts clearly, but when he heard the third shout, his face changed immediately. There's a snake, there's a snake, my god, such a big king cobra. Get out of the way, get out of the way, if it bites you, you'll die. Belsina's heart immediately twitched when he heard there was a snake, and it was a king cobra. His wife was on the construction site. What if the king cobra bit Lina? So Belsina was anxious and prepared to jump off the 2-meter high rock. If he jumped down, his ankle would obviously twist when he landed. Belsina fell to the ground with a cry, holding his deformed ankle and sweating coldly. At this time, the human mule Brook was terrified, anxious and crying, and wanted to use his big hands to straighten the master's deformed ankle. But at this time, Belsina was sweating profusely and endured the pain of spraining his ankle. He slapped Brooke and cursed anxiously. "Are you an idiot? Carry me on your back and return to the construction site as quickly as possible. There are snakes and king cobras. What if they bite Lina? Don't worry about my feet first. Hurry back." The human mule Brooke reacted and grabbed Belsina's outstretched hands with both hands. With a waist and a force, Belsina, who was almost 90 kilograms, was put on Brooke's back again. He stood up and swung his legs and ran away. The guy was so fast. He had been used to the weight of his master since he was a child carrying Belsina. Let the mule Brooke carry the more than 100 kilograms of Belsina and run around in the forest as if walking on flat ground. Belsina was still very bumpy on the back of the mule, which was not as good as me, but worried about Lina's safety, and shouted with his neck stretched, "Lina, get out of danger quickly. Lina, I'm coming. I'm coming. Don't move. I'm coming." After climbing over 2 small hills, we finally saw the commotion of the crowd, and a male king cobra with a body size of more than 4 meters surrounded by the crowd. My goodness, this snake is really domineering, with a diameter of more than 10 centimeters, and a pair of cold eyes looking at the crowd vigilantly. The erected body reached 1.8 meters, almost 2 meters, taller than a human, so the attack radius is the farthest among all snakes. In addition, the poison of the king cobra is quite domineering. This snake is the overlord of the forest. I didn't expect it to run into the fruit forest today. It seems that the delicious fruits on the mountain fell on the ground and attracted a lot of mice. Of course, the king cobra does not eat mice, but the king cobra eats snakes. Where there are mice, there are snakes. Where there are snakes, there are king cobras. Together with the rotten fruits that fall from the trees, a complete food chain is formed. This is why king cobras appear in an orchard, so close to human habitation. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.